All right. Welcome if you're new. It's got a number of small changes to the deck. I don't want to cover too much. I actually want to go through a very long marathon session that this deck underwent in an attempt to see how it would do against combo, because combo seems to be the number one enemy of this deck. It is the most difficult um, style of play to defeat. And I had the perfect opponent who happened to have lots of time, had a really good deck, plays well, and gave me an excellent run for my money. Thank you very much. And so, without spending too much time on the changes, most of which were already in play before we started the marathon session, there were a couple of changes I made during, and I'll try to point those out. The main reason was that I realized like some cards that I had theory crafted into the deck as possible good answers or tools against my opponent's deck and in general against the field did not feel very good when I was drawing them, and I thought some other cards that I might like to use um, should be moved into the deck, and then I was kind of feeling out how that was working, and where I ended up was kind of where we are here. Kind of get back Rack and Ruin back in the deck seems very, very important for those early starts. You've just got to disrupt them. Praetor's Grasp has made its way back in the deck. This was in and out for a little while. The reason this card's so important is that it interferes with an early Imperial Seal potentially, or like a mid-game Imperial Seal. You find some prisoners in here to do both what Rack and Ruin does and Grasp in terms of interfering with Imperial Seal effects like that, but also Praetor's Grasp against particularly blue-based combo decks or black-based decks. So against black-based decks, you can typically go get a card like Necropotence, and you can just take away one of their strong tools to win the game and use it yourself. Against blue decks, you can typically go get the free commander counter, which basically all blue decks will run. And then you can use that to either prevent them from going off on the combo turn, or you can use that to protect yourself as you go for the win, or push through cards that are going to disrupt them enough to result in an eventual win. And that's extremely powerful and very important. Functions like a second deflecting Swat. You do have to cast it, of course. Occasionally, there's a few other things you can do with this, like you can go get your opponent's Strip Mine if they play one and disrupt them. You can go get their Soul Ring or their Crypt. So this card can act like a Fabricate for Crypt. In general, I think this card actually is, the more that I've used it, the more I've realized how absolutely strong the card is, and the more and more I'm starting to think that the card probably needs to be a staple. A couple of other changes I dropped. Unfortunately, with great sadness, the Priest of Forgotten Gods. It's a card that totally dominates against decks like green and white. It's very, very, very good card. Unfortunately, it is just too slow for the world of combo to really get things cooking. You just don't have time for the effect. I also dropped, I had Nihil Spellbomb in here. It'll show up in an early game. I ended up cutting that and just running Dread Fugue. Dread Fugue, for 1 black, you get to make them discard a card that costs 2 mana or less. For a black 2 and a black, so for 4 mana, you can just make them discard any non-land card. You're basically never going to play the cleave cost. That's an insanely high, overpriced effect. Or maybe it's 2 and a black. I don't even know how it works. It doesn't matter. If it was 3 mana or 4 mana, it wouldn't make a difference at all. It's way too expensive. But for 1 black, being able to Inquisition, even though it's only 2 or less, can make a huge difference, because Soul Ring costs 1, Mana Crypt costs 0, and so forth. You're also looking at cards like Dark Ritual, Demonic Tutor, Mana Drain, stuff like that. So you definitely have a wealth of quality cards that you could be potentially taking away with the Fugue. I'm not going to say this card is necessarily going to be here forever. I don't like the fact that it is so limited, but you just really want to interact with your opponent early on. So this is where we're at now. One thing that I have considered as a result of this experiment is whether or not Red Elemental Blast and Pyroblast actually need to be in the deck, because I hate to do it. I hate being that specific in the kinds of hate cards that I put into a deck, but it's very possible that those cards need to make it simply because blue because Thassa's Oracle exists, and I'm sort of at I don't know what to do about the card, right? Like I just don't know what to do, and you'll see multiple times where it happens. I mean, you just have to counterspell it. So like if you're not playing blue, I mean, I don't know. So red does at least have a couple counterspells, and as is though the solution is to try to either take it out of their hand or make it impossible for them to combo off and so forth. But it is very challenging and frustrating card to deal with, and it'd be pretty nice to have a couple of very cheap cards that would either allow you to stop your opponent from force of willing your Tevesh Szat or just killing you with a Thassa's Oracle would be pretty nice. But who knows? It might not be the way to go. And for now, this is where we're at. And I want to dig into the games. We have a lot of games to go through. So in the last 7 days, as you can see, there was a number of games, various opponents and such, learning. And then I finally got a chance, as you can see here, to play against Imadonkey. Playing combo, and we just ran through a marathon, 33 games. I believe that this deck finished 18 and 15, if I counted correctly. I counted them up, but it's kind of hard when you have to count like this. It would be real nice if you could do like, I don't know, if you could have a little more fine tuning and also get like a count somewhere up here would be really cool. But as is, manually counting, I think it was about 33 or 33 games, 18-15 in favor of this deck. But if you notice at the end, picked up a couple wins here, a loss and a couple wins. So very easily, but as you can see, it's a win, a couple losses, a loss, a couple wins. Like it could be a simple function of we broke it off right at that time, and if we'd have played another one, he would have got a couple wins, and I would have got, and then it would have like evened out. So it's really hard to say. Best I can say is that we did at least 50% and maybe just a smidge over, but it might have been a 50-50, effectively a coin toss with the current configuration. So I'm going to start out, and I'll point out where we see cards that ultimately got cut. But in the meantime, we'll go and run through these games and try to do it somewhat quickly because, of course, we've got a lot of games to go through. Here you can see my opponent's. Also, I want to point out my opponent's commander combo. This might actually be the best. Combo of commanders. This might actually be the best, like commander, although it's partners, in the format. And it's very possible that a deck like what's currently being played, the Rograkh Tevesh BullSzat deck, might be better off giving up some of the speed that Rog gives you in order to get all of the utility tools that Blue offers, and the power of Crom, which is actually a pretty powerful card in its own right. And excuse me, this might suck that down the wrong pipe. There's a future where this deck ends up morphing slightly into using these partners combo. Tevesh is clearly super busted and needs to be banned. But honestly, the whole partner mechanic's broken. But as you're going to see, everything that's going on, these are between the two decks. We're doing everything that's wrong with Commander, just about everything that's wrong with Commander, wrapped up into two decks. Like the format has become so toxic and so like horrendous and stupid. But hey, hopefully entertaining for you. But anyway, and maybe the point of this video is actually to demonstrate what I don't like about the format, that perhaps, as a community, we can talk about getting these cards banned. I mean, that was the original point of building this deck anyway, was to try to get some fixes on the ban list, because it's really messed up right now, in my view. So let's run through the games and see if you agree. But there is a future, but just be aware, there is a future. I may experiment with running a Tevesh Crom combo that tries to be a control deck rather than a, as this deck does, rather than a combo deck the way that my opponent's is. Mainly because, control is what I like to play. I just don't like combo, frankly, and aggro's. Combo I find to be annoying because of the way that it intends to win control I find to be aggro I find to be boring, and control I find to be interesting. But I realize, of course, we're all quite different on that, and many people would see it the exact opposite. Anyway, I'm going to go ahead and lead off with an Inquisition. Here, luckily, I won the die roll, and unfortunately, my opponent does force the will using a Fierce Guardianship. So I'm going to go ahead and just play Mana Crypt. We'll play Rog, Clamp, and then draw some cards here off the Skull Clamp. This is great. This gives me quite a few options for turn 2. You can see now my opponent is starting with only 5 cards in hand off the Force of Will, and despite that has a pretty good start, right? 3 mana and card drawing engine. 4 mana and a card drawing engine. So my opponent's threatening to go Tevesh or Crom and start drawing cards right away. They could do that, for example, by just paying the upkeep here and then playing like Ancient Tomb or whatever, or a Land Soul Ring, something like that, or any ritual. I mean, there's so many ways that they could do it from here. So with that in mind, I'm going to try to respect what they're threatening as much as I can. But one of the ways that I could possibly deal with that might be to just keep up. So I'm going to feed them a card. I've already seen their Force of Will. They're down to, they've got 3 cards in hand, so hopefully no Force of Negation. It sticks, or other 1-drop counter. But at least this way, I can produce. I gave them 1, but 2 1/1s is 4 cards for me. So they get 1, I get 4 and a Planeswalker, so that's why I make that play. Let's see if they keep the Remora or let it go. All right, opponent decides to keep the Remora, which is very understandable given how disruptive it is for any deck to face. They go ahead and get Probe Me, so they've got all the information they need, but they do miss a land drop there. They sack their Pluto Delta right off the bat in order to work around the potential top deck of the flash creature that'll punish them for searching. All right. Anyway, I'm going to go ahead and make another draw 4. Well, let's start clamping and seeing what we can do with some of these cards here. Well, there's a Mox Amber, which is pretty weak under Remora. Him also had problematic under Remora. So I think what I'm going to do is I'm just going to go ahead and play the Amber and pay here, and then pass for the turn. And there's a reason for this, and that is that I don't know. I didn't give him a card. This allows me to develop and then potentially like him them next turn or whatever. I'm trying to work through this, but what I'm thinking they might do is if my opponent, I really don't want him to get a 5th land and then play either Crom or Tevesh. I don't want either one of those things to happen, or something worse like Ad Nauseam. So I really want to attack that Mana Crypt. But if they're planning to make a 5-drop, that means they're going to let the Remora go. If they don't let the Remora go, if they just pay and sit, then I can keep working. With this play, I can keep working and, using the Clamp and Tevesh. I'm threatening to ultimate and potentially take all. Remember, Tevesh's ultimate, I would get both of my opponent's commanders. And so threatening that, they really don't have the luxury of sitting on the Remora. They kind of have to let it go here. More than likely, and that's exactly what happened. So that's great. So with that out of the way, I'm going to immediately make the attempt to call the weak and then kill their Mana Crypt and take a card out of their hand, which will hopefully deny them from playing their commander here. Well, unfortunately, my opponent has a Swan Song to counter that play. So I did get 2 for 1, but when you're drawing 5 cards per turn, you can afford to get 2 for 1. And you can give up cards for tempo. So generally speaking, tempo plays are more powerful than card advantage plays. Card advantage just lets you make more tempo plays, if that makes sense. However, if you go in on tempo too hard to the point that you're doing things like land, like just a theoretical land, Lotus Petal, Lotus Petal, Lotus Petal, Lotus Petal. You can't do this in Commander, of course. And then play Tevesh Szat, and you've gone so hard into your tempo play, it's possible you won't recover, especially if there's a little bit of disruption to steal that tempo back. Anyway, my opponent does have disruption here, but I did it during upkeep. 1, because I was hoping the Remora would be gone, and 2, because I was hoping that I could get them to spend mana if they had any to disrupt, which is what happens and matters, because as you can see, my opponent has a Grim Monolith there, but misses a land drop, which means that they are 1 mana shy of Tevesh. Or more importantly, at this point, they've got to be thinking Crom, right? Because they need to swing in and prevent my Tevesh from ultimating. All right, so I'm just going to look for I'm going to look for artifact kill. If I can find some of that, then I've got this game 100% in the bag. Go ahead and draw some cards here. Hit my opponent. Get a couple of rituals. So my opponent actually could have ritualed out Tevesh here, but they recognized the threat that they need to answer with Chrome. So that's probably why they didn't go ahead and ritual out the Tevesh instead. But I think we brick, but basically, I think this is a bugged game. But basically, so I hit my opponent, that happens, and I can't remember what happened, but somewhere in here I find some artifact disruption. I don't remember if it was like Tutor Karn or what it was, but I am able to disrupt my opponent's mana, and they know that they're not going to be able to play this game basically anymore, and they give up. You notice the spell bomb just sits there being useless. It would have been so much better if it was just discard. Anyway, we move on to game 2 though. And sorry about the noise. We got some work going on outside, and I've tried to tamp down the volume, but unfortunately you're going to hear some of it. All right, so crazy good start here, and I even won the die roll. And, and a very interesting experiment might be to, let's do this. So who wins the die roll? And who wins the game? And so I've won two die rolls, I think, and I'm going to win this game. Just spoilers if you didn't notice. So let's see. How do I want to do this? Because I want to create like a bit of a matrix here. Let's do it in a spreadsheet instead, and let's see how heavily this corresponds. I think. So to me, you can get a better idea of how broken a format is when it's very consistently the case that winning the die roll correlates to winning the game. So we're going to do die roll and then game, and we're just going to put players. So we're going to put so it's going to be Nate. And Nate, and it was going to be Nate, and this one, and then we'll just keep tallying that up. We'll see how that goes. So this is the second game here. Obviously, I have a nuts hand. We're just going to go turn one Tevesh off the back of Saga. Now this is the kind of start that you can't get with Crom because of course it's fueling the Mox Amber is Rogue. So this is what I mean about the stack having more explosive starts. But giving up Force of Will and Force of Negation and such it might not be worth it. It might be worth waiting a turn just to get cards like that. And of course, we get to draw 3 right here. Whereas before, if we didn't have Crom, we would... if we had Crom and we didn't have Rograkh, even if this was a card like Mox Diamond, allowing us to make that same turn 1 play, we would have had to make 2 guys and then pass. And wait a turn to get our cards. Anyway, opponent's going to similarly start off with a pretty quick start. Imadonkey had to mulligan multiple times, but this is a good... If you're going to mulligan, you want to mulligan into a turn 2 Tevesh or a turn 1 Tevesh. That's perfectly fine. This is getting more ridiculous over here, of course. Calling the Weak is going to allow for a Godthrow statue to come down here and just pressure our opponent's mana. This protects against like tutors into plays, and it also means that they can't play either of their commanders because they're 1 mana short right now, and they can't sneak out outside of an Ancient Tomb. They can't play like a Crypt or a Soul Ring to get there, not with the Godthrow statue running. Here I'm going to float some mana, grab a Opal because I need a little more black mana for the play that I intend to make. We'll go ahead and Collective Brutality, seeing nothing, so the coast is clear. And with that, I'm going to go ahead and Praetor's Grasp. And now you can get a sense of what my opponent's deck and what we're facing. So if you take a look, this is, like I said, everything wrong with the format, or damn near everything wrong with the format exists in one of the 2 decks, right? You've got all of the just dumb, ridiculous stuff. Jeweled Lotus makes games end on turn 1 and turn 2 all the time. Lion's Eye Diamond contributes to so many dumb combos and does the same thing sometimes as a Jeweled Lotus. It's almost almost the same card. You know, imagine like mulliganing to 2, and then you go like Ancient Tomb, Lion's Eye Diamond, cast Tevesh, Szat, cast Rog, draw 3 cards. Like, that's a game you're going to win, right? So another really stupid, I mean, and possibly an argument for why we could consider running Diamond. We did at one time, but it's pretty risky in a format. It's pretty risky when you don't have counters specifically. Anyway, Lotus Petal, Mana Crypt. So you've got multiple draw 7s, Wheel of Fortune, Time Twister, Windfall. You've got multiple graveyard recursions, mass graveyard recursions in the form of Breach and Will, as well as like some really busted stuff you can do with lots of mana, like Pyramid of the Abyss, Ad Nauseam, of course Necro, Mind Twist. Underworld Breach combo is in this deck because you can do the whole combo with the oh wow, I'm totally drawing a blank here. Brain freeze. Sorry, so you brain freeze yourself for lots of cards. You use some of those cards to play more mana. Use that mana sources like Lion's Eye Diamond, for example, and Lotus Petal. You use those cards to then brain freeze yourself for even more cards, and you just keep doing that until you have no deck left, and then you play Thassa's Oracle from the graveyard, or any other way you could brain freeze your opponent for lethal, whatever works best. Speaking of Thassa's Oracle, we've got Thassa's Oracle Consult, Thassa's Oracle Pact, all that nonsense is in here as well. So, and just tons of tutors and free counters and stuff. So you can see this is just a horrifying deck to have to face, and so is the one that we're playing for slightly different reasons, but mostly for the same reasons. And the reasons are Dark Ritual, Jeweled Lotus, Calling the Weak, you know, Mana Crypt and Soul Ring, and all this other stuff. You know, LED style effects, and when the format was here, you've got like even Pyretic Rituals, Rains of Filth, Raid of Flames, like Simian Spirit Guides. It's just so broken, right? And when the format was, there was a certain amount of this stuff around, it was bad, but it was bad but rare. But there's been so much more printed to support this. There's the Lotus, the Breach, the Oracle, and stuff that we've gotten to a point where we've surpassed bad but tolerable, and we've moved into mandatory. And once you get into this mandatory thing where all games pretty much revolve around the first turn or the first 2 turns or whatever, for me, I feel like that's where bans need to happen. It's just not fun. All right, I've got another insane hand, but I am going second. So, and in this game, I am going to lose. And so here our correlation is still occurring. And I mean, I've got a nuts hand, right? Like a Saga Lotus hand, but I'm going second. And format's pretty broken. So I don't lead off with Saga here. So I'm going to tell you why I don't lead with Saga, and it's because I'm a little concerned that I may need to. So if my opponent comes out with a fast Crom, I can Rollick it, and then they come out with a fast Tevesh, I can Angress Rampage it, and that might be a way for me to get back in the game. So that's what I was thinking here. And opponent, oh, there we go, Ancient Tomb, Lotus Petal, and a Simian Spirit Guide. Into Tevesh, make some thralls, and this is really bad for me. 2, 3, 4, 5, because even if I do kill the Tevesh, which is what I intend to do, there are only 2 mana away from replaying it, or they can just play Crom, and that card's a problem itself. Of course, I have the Rollick, so I'm not feeling terrible about this. Feed the Swarm's another card that I very much don't like in this deck. I don't feel like it's great, but it might be necessary because of cards like the blue enchantment that we saw in the first game. Anyway, I'm going to go ahead and Rampage here, though, and see if I can kill the Tevesh. So I do, so I'm still in the game. Otherwise, I was just not in the game at all. Opponent runs out Talisman into an Imperial Seal play, and then Wheel of Fortune. Frustrating. All right, I might as well roll up one of the tokens. Just, I'm gonna discard it anyway. So let's kill that thing. Very unfortunate here. As you can see, this is part of the problem here with the combo decks. Like, I don't know why Power 9 is in Commander. I just don't understand it. And Wheel of Fortune is red power 9. Power 9, if you're not familiar, is Black Lotus, 5 Moxes, Ancestral Recall, Time Walk, and Time Twister. Time Twister and Wheel of Fortune, in my view, need to go. They're power 9. They shouldn't be in. Jeweled Lotus, in my view, is essentially as close to a freaking Black Lotus as it needs to be. That card needs to go. And then you could probably take a look at like the 5 Moxes and contrast that against cards like Soul Ring, Mana Crypt, Mox Diamond, and so forth, and figure out which ones have drawbacks significant enough, balanced enough, that it's okay to leave them in the format, and which ones probably also need to go. Because right now, in my view, we have too much Power 9 in the format, too much of this kind of mimicking of Power 9 and this other type of effects. And what you end up with is some really just absurd stuff like what we're going to see. But as I said, I'm glad I got a chance to play against Imadonkey running all this stuff, because I need to know how I can deal with it, because right now these cards are not. And here you can see Priest of Forgotten Gods comes up, and incidentally not. I love the card. It's so good, but it doesn't make the cut anymore. That would have been You Find Some Prisoners in future iterations. And we'll see if that would have been actually decent here for me. And here my opponent runs out Mana Volt. And as you... into Lotus. Oh, God. And does not play Tevesh, which is really interesting. I'm going to vamp to try to... my hand is very mediocre, but I'm going to try to get into this game. And I make a decision that possibly was incorrect. It does end up not winning me the game, basically. So my choice here are to Thoughtseize and then buy Force. If I Thoughtseize first, I can buy Force for 3. And so I can take out Lotus, Mana Volt, and one of these. And then I leave my opponent with like 5 mana, which I'll probably take out the Rakdos to cut off the color. So 1, 2, 3. And my opponent have 5 mana, and 4 cards in hand, which means they're probably going to be able to play Crom next turn. They're probably going to be able to play Tevesh next turn due to the number of rituals and things in the deck. But I can Thoughtseize at least and potentially take out one of the cards from their hand. And maybe if I can take out the right card, then that probably becomes a Nope, and it buys me a little bit of time, and then I can potentially do more. And of course, if this was artifact removal, so I'd be leaving them with the Talisman, I'd be much more inclined to do that, because I could Thoughtseize, then buy Force them, leave 1 artifact, and on a subsequent turn play a land, play a Signet, buy Force, and then play my commander, get in the game. You can see how much that having the Priest actually hurts me here. But I decide to be more greedy than that, because you can't use this for blue mana to play a counterspell. My opponent doesn't have a commander out, so they can't play the free one. They only have 4 cards in hand. So what are the odds that they have a free counterspell here? So I decide to let it go, and I'll kill all of their mana, and then I can follow it up with... let's say their play is to somehow get Crom down, then maybe I can use like Priest to get back in the game or something like that. Well, it doesn't matter, because opponent does in fact have Force, and Forces with the Force negation. So if I had Thoughtseized my opponent, and my opponent has another blue card in their hand, it would have done no good, because they would have been able to sit on both Force, or it wouldn't have done much good, because they would have been able to sit on both Forces, and there's no way I could have pushed my spell through either way. And the fact that they have no cards in hand is not that relevant, considering they can just start drawing off Tevesh and Crom there. Anyway, but for my opponent's turn, I don't even bother. There's no coming back from this. My opponent has this much mana in play and access to these cards. I'm totally hosed on mana. I have no real catch-up mechanism here. There's basically nothing I can do at that point. And that had to happen there, or this game was over, and it didn't happen there. So I go ahead and just scoop it up, and we just move on to the next game. There was no hope there. All right, so in the next game, and in order to facilitate playing against playing as many games as possible and getting the most testing possible, you'll see me concede, or my opponent concede, when it's clear that the game is all but over, because it's more valuable to play 5 quick games than it is to play 1 super slow game where the outcome is, maybe in 100 games you might have something happen that surprises you, but for the most part, it's predictable, and you're just wasting your time, which you could be used for more testing. All right, so next game we're going to play against Imadonkey, and it looks like I'm going to get a win, so we'll see who goes first. And all right, looks like it would be me first, and it looks like I win. Weird. Okay, all right, this is borderline keepable, but it is keepable. The main rule for this deck, for the most part, is that you want to make sure you can play your commander by turn 3. Against a dedicated, like, hardcore fast deck, you might consider pushing that to turn 2. Turn 3 is sketchy, but sometimes it's the best you can do, and this hand's just good enough that we'll go ahead and keep it and see what happens. All right, so my opponent leads off with obviously some pretty nuts start. Drops 4 mana on turn 1. This is why I'm saying, like, you need turn 1 or turn 2. But the reason I kept this, of course, was the fact that I get extra mana on turn 1 and a Demonic Tutor, and it's gonna prove to be quite useful here, as well as this Praetor's Grasp. So what I'm going to do is now, because of the Grasp, here's where you're going to see the value of this card that I've been trying to that I've wanted to explain here. So this is a very frequent and common tactic that you'll use against combo decks. So we're gonna Grasp. Once again, another look. You can take a second to figure out what you would like to get there. Maybe Necropotence or Mind Twist or something like that. But no, the correct card here is Fierce Guardianship. We're gonna do this all the time. Because as you can see, like, if my opponent runs out Crom, we can work around Crom. But if they run out Tevesh, probably dead. And then, of course, if my opponent has some other play, like Ad Nauseam, I'm definitely dead if I don't have a solution. So luckily here, I can steal my opponent's turn with a Fierce. And this is one of the reasons why I'm really considering trying to build this deck with a dabble of blue in it, just to be able to do things like this. Although I wouldn't have a Rogue in play, so that, you got to be careful about the assumptions that you make when you talk about things like that. Anyway, as you can see here, so I'm going to move the mic a little closer to me. Hopefully it'll help with the sound outside. So we're gonna counter the Tevesh, and that buys me an entire turn, and that's super valuable, because with one more turn I can make a play that I couldn't make last turn, which is to DT here, and then grab myself a Shattering Spree. And so now we're getting our opponent back down to normal amounts of mana, which is pretty beneficial here. Hopefully they don't like Time Twister or Wheel of Fortune or Windfall, or Ritual, or or this or that. Like, there's so many things they can do. Obviously, so Felwar, Skull Clamp, quite strong for them there. But we are doing okay on this end of things. I'm going to go ahead and actually run out the Arcane Signet here, and then Expedition Map into a Strip Mine. We'll go ahead and Strip Mine their black source, trying to keep them off of Necropotence mana. They can already use the Felwar Stone for black, but if they didn't kill me last turn on 2 mana, then maybe they won't kill me this turn on 2 mana. It's kind of the thinking here. All right, opponent plays a Talisman of Creativity. This is great. They're lining up lots of tasty artifacts for me to nosh on, and the suppression shall continue with a nice and Yawgmoth's Will into Strip Mine, into Shattering Spree. Once again, we'll go ahead and leave them with the Skull Clamp and just take out the mana sources. And then I'm not going to sack the Strip Mine until their upkeep, because I don't want to exile it, because I'd love to be able to replay it again. Fortunately, so Imadonkey's had enough, and we move on to the next game. So this is how the suppression package of this deck is supposed to work. But if you notice, the key component was the Praetor's Grasp. Having a counterspell there was super important. And then the other piece of it is the artifact kill. So if you're looking at the deck and thinking, like, that is a lot of artifact kill, this is the reason behind it. You've got to control their mana, and artifacts are effectively time walks when it comes to artifact mana, right? Artifacts allow your opponent to make plays ahead of time, and that's the equivalent of taking extra turns and making plays, right? So you can kind of look at it that way. All right, so Imadonkey is going to win this one. Let's see who goes first. Let's see if this is following the pattern, or if this is something different. Oh, no, Imadonkey is first, and Imadonkey is the winner of this game. So we'll record that dutifully on the spreadsheet. And I have a very keepable hand, right? Like first turn drum, curse my opponent. Second turn, I mean maybe I like first turn dark ritual him my opponent, then play the drum, then curse them, and then second turn attack and like tower. I mean there's a lot here. If I'm going first, this hand's insanely savage, but even going second, it looks really good. Opponent leads off with Imperial Seal. Unfortunate. So with less cards in their hand, I get an Ugin, which is actually, you'll see, is actually quite important in this deck, but not great here. So with less cards in their hand, the value of him to Tark just went way up. And they probably planned whatever the next card is based around the cards in their hand. So let's see if we can disrupt that and get that him off. Ooh, Intuition and a Dark Ritual. Dark Ritual being particularly good here, possibly buying me some time. So we'll get a Rogue out, drum, curse the opponent, so we can start generating treasures as we swing and pass for the turn. Okay, Crypt, that's probably off the top, so they probably were going to go Ritual Crypt Commander or whatever. Unfortunately, Crypt into Talisman, and I don't have Artifact Removal. All right, so I'm going to attack and then see if I can find some. Let's get that gold token. How do we do this? 1, 2, 3, 4. There's no way to play like my commander here, for example. So I've got to play a little bit scary in the sense that I'm going to have to try to find removal for artifacts, and I need to find it right now. So we'll go for Clamp. Opponent brainstorms in response, or maybe discard would be good. Well, with that play, I decide I'm not going to Clamp here, and the reason is that next turn I'd love to get a gold token. I'm not sure that even if I drew Artifact Removal, it would have to be a singular red. And I'm worried that I might not find it. And if I don't find it, I probably would lose. But this way, by doing this, if my opponent plays Tevesh, next turn I can actually play Ugin and just kill it. And then I've got a path to victory potentially. Unfortunately, my opponent plays Narset. And I will be honest, this is a game I misplay. So you're going to see. So right now, the correct answer is, so let's see, 2, 3, 4, 5. I've got 5 mana. So I have multiple things that I could do, any of which are good. And I think I do none of them. So I could, for example, just play my commander, make some guys so that so I can fuel the drum and the intent. Or I could potentially, Diabolic Intent away the Rogue and go get myself, like I was saying, like double artifact kill both of these, and then Narset will be in play, but over the course of a few turns, I can kind of work my way through and then get down the Ugin and try to kill the Narset. It's really hard to decide like what's correct, but I decided to go get extra mana here and then just replay Rog. And so I'm kind of all set for an Ugin play next turn. So this is not horrible, right? But it may not be correct. My opponent Narsets into Coalition Relic, so more effect mana, which is coming down. So I have basically no time at all. I'm going to swing, of course, get my gold token. And I really need to kill Narset right now. Pretty much from this point on, any play that doesn't involve me playing Ugin right here is incorrect. And I make an incorrect play. I have no idea. Don't ask me what I was thinking, other than, hey, I'll play Tevesh now and then kill Narset next turn or something. Let me check and see if they have, I don't know, mana drain or whatever. This is just dumb and terrible. As it turns out, Tevesh resolves. Of course it does. Like, why would my opponent care when they have a Narset in play? And I'm going to lose the game because Narset sat in play for too long, and my opponent tutors into a Time Twister, and then just produces some mana. Time Twister Narset, you know how this goes. I get a Calling the Weak, and And then my opponent plays Tevesh Szat. So now I've got all these problems, and I have no Ugin. I can't get this thing off the board. I can't pressure this with Ugin tokens. I'm totally screwed. And there are windows here where I could potentially get back into the game, because if I can get Narset off the board, I can easily, with all these cards, I can just clamp my way back to victory, blow all these lands up, or play Karn or something, these artifact manas, and have a way into the game. But what ends up happening is I end up getting multiple turns, and over the course of the next 1 or 2 turns, I draw nothing but mana. But it's my own fault for letting the Narset stay in play, not getting the Ugin down last turn. I had to play the Ugin. It was absolutely heinously stupid not to play it there, and I threw that game. So we'll move to the next game. I was a little upset at myself. All right. So this time we're going to break the pattern, and I'm going to win the die roll, and then I'm going to lose the game. All right. So I have a hand that is horribly slow, so I'm going to mulligan that. This hand is unplayable, pretty much. I mean, I could go first turn clamp, second turn shattering skull, clamp my guy, hope that somehow finds me something. All right, this hand's a little fast, but it's still really bad. Do I want to keep mulliganing, though? I mean, I can kind of get like Chandra going and then maybe use that. It's just not good. All right, here I have a Demonic Tutor. This allows me to get turn 3 commander, which is the sort of baseline minimum that we need. So I will keep it, but I've pretty much mulliganed myself to death. I am going first also, which makes it even worse. It does, I guess, make my opponent's draw 7s worse, but that's pretty much all you can say for it. All right, so we'll go ahead and tutor here. My opponent has a counter. So if I could have tutored there and picked myself up like an Ancient Tome or a Mana Crypt or something, perhaps, or like a Lotus, and perhaps this game might have gone a little differently. But with that play right there, and me missing a land drop here, it's just too many mulligans. I've got no action. I've watched multiple fetch lands get burned and haven't been able to op-agent them. And my opponent's about to play Tevesh, and there's no coming back from that. So we'll just go ahead and move on to the next game. Again, better to just play more than to suffer an outcome that is surely basically inevitable. Okay, so and now we're going to break the rule the other direction. So Imadonkey's going to go first, and I'm going to win, which is nice. We'll just leave caps lock on for now since I'm doing it this way, and then I'll just run a tally at the end, and we'll see how this all comes out. But obviously, this is a pretty gross hand. However, it's a big risk hand, right? This amber only produces red. I'm actually missing a black source. Without a black source or a mana source of any color to get an early Karn going, I don't really have much. Fortunately, I did at least draw the expedition map, so we'll go ahead and play that and run it and see how we do. Luckily, I get a command tower, and I decided that from here, given how much mana I have and the fact that I have a tutor that I can use and like a Lotus and stuff, any land will work. So I'm going to actually go ahead and get rid of Rog and attempt to disrupt my opponent this way. I probably could have demonic tutored. Normally I would demonic tutor for a crypt there, but then I'd be one short for the Karn. I could have also demonic tutored for Lotus and then Lotused out the commander, but I felt like getting the Karn down against the combo deck was probably correct. It's very questionable as to whether or not that was correct. Fortunately, at least I did it because as you can see, the Mystic Remora just came up, and that is a bit problematic. We'll go ahead and play Rog here, who doesn't feed the Remora. It turns my Amber back on, and just be patient. Opponent Vampirics, a little worried here. I'm going to go ahead and tutor before they get their third land down in case they run opposition agents. One plays Gemstone Caverns, Dark Ritual, and plays their Tevesh. Normally pretty scary play. Luckily, I did save the tutor instead of using it for development, so I can use it for disruption instead. So we'll go ahead and GT here and grab a Swat. Something is incorrect. My hand is, we are bugged out. Something is wrong. because I wouldn't have grabbed the Swat there unless I had removal. I'm certain that I don't think I had Deluge. Something's wrong, or I didn't have Lotus. I had removal for Tevesh, and I killed Tevesh Szat there, and I back it up with a deflecting Swat. And then on the next turn, I play my commander and start drawing cards, and my opponent doesn't come back. So unfortunately, a bugged out game, but that's okay. We've got lots more in the pipeline. Here you can see a string of losses. So this is going to be a little bit painful to relive here, but it is what it is. And you can see this time I am going to go first, and I'm going to lose. And there we go. And boy. So I win the die roll. I go, and he's going to win and win and win. We'll see who wins the die roll later. All right, so I've got a mulligan. I've got a mulligan again. This is just too slow. This is risky, but enough. So we're going to have to go that route. And we'll lead off with Saga, Crypt, play the guy. Let's go ahead and get some cards in hand. See if we can find some mana for that will. I do, although it's ironically a Paradise Mantle. So I'm going to play it. Of course, I don't want to get Jessica's Willed or Time Twistered or Windfalled. So you just have to dump against combo. And, well, my opponent's got a pretty fast start themselves. So the Jessica's Will is good, but not looking anywhere near as good as it was just a moment ago. All right, we'll go ahead and play the Soul Ring into the commander. And do I clamp it or do I Paradise Mantle? I'm going to clamp and hope to hit some land. Well, I don't. Quite painfully missing land there. So going to have to wait another turn. I know I wanted to play a land and then make a Dork who could then pick up a Paradise Mantle on the subsequent turn. But keep in mind, without my commander, I also can't Rollick here. All right, opponent goes for Crom. An interesting choice over the over their commander. All right, so I can float mana, grab a Lotus out my more potent commander, which goes great with the Skull Clamp. Oh, brutal. And I get Fierced. So if I would have, I guess I could have done this a little differently, but yeah, no, it's nasty. All right, well, I still need to deal with the fact that, yeah, they're going to get a card here, but I really need to deal with this Crom. So we'll go ahead and do that. But yeah, I'm way behind now. Free counters, man. Hard to deal with. All right. So go ahead and equip the Paradise Mantle. See if I can get a Jessica's off. Opponent counters by giving me some treasures, which is not horrible, actually. So we'll go ahead and try and resolve a Stick of Karn. And it is going to stick, but unfortunately my opponent has Ad Nauseam, and Ad Nauseam is game over. So we move into the next game. And this is just one of the reasons why I think the card needs to be banned, along with all the fast mana. But the fact that a lot of the fast mana, anyway, not all of it, because otherwise blue takes over completely. But one of the problems with is it's the combination of fast mana and cards and singular cards that win the game. That combination is unhealthy for a format. You can have fast mana, you can have cards that win the game. You can't have fast mana and cards that win the game, or you have a very unhealthy format where it becomes degenerate. All you're trying to do is just puke out mana, win the game, puke out mana, win the game. Exactly like what he did there, although that was a slow version of it, and I think he's going to do some fast versions of it coming up here. All right, once again, I win the game, and I am not going to... Sorry, I win the roll, and I am not going to win the game, painfully. But this looks keepable. It's not great, but it's okay. I think that... yeah, I still have the Priest in here. I think that I probably should have kept... This would have been Artifact to kill. Well, it would have been an offer you can't... Or you find some prisoners, which would have been really nice. Anyway, I'm going to lead off with the first turn him here and just see if I can get somewhere. I do take a Force of Will and a Skull Clamp, which the Clamp is not great, but the Force is excellent to see. Would have loved to have hit that Crypt there. And my opponent leads off with 4 mana on turn 1, as you're supposed to do in this format. Alright, so for turn 2, I'm just going to play Rog again because I don't have a lot going on here. I don't know if my opponent's going to put which commander my opponent's going to play, but I can kill either way. I can kill it. Unfortunately, I didn't have enough mana to kill their Crypt, or rather their Signet, you know, to make them take out a mana last turn. But I can at least so there's Tevesh, and we can get that off the board potentially. There's not a great way to do this, but I could sack this and then Jessica's Will, but the problem is then this is gone and I'm not going to get the 3 cards. So there's not really like a great route here. So we'll go ahead and just make him sack a Planeswalker and hope that that's kind of good enough for now. It probably isn't. Instead, my opponent just plays Crom, and of course that's problematic in its own right. There's a Vandal Blast, so I'm trying to figure out how do I do this? So frustrating sitting here. I'm going to try to run out the Jessica's Will, and unfortunately for me, one has yet another. Oh no, they don't have anything. All right, so I actually hit here, so I get to play a land. I get to play Grim Monolith. My opponent does draw a card, of course, but from there I can fetch and Mind Twist all of those cards. So very nice. So I have a chance to be in the game, but the problem is if my opponent top decks a single land, plays their commander, then I'm not in this game before I can Vandal Blast them. So we'll see. And rather than drawing a land, they draw a ritual. Whatever, 6 1/2 dozen the other. At this point, once they get the ritual, I know the game's over. Vandal Blasting them when they're drawing 3 cards, 4 cards per turn. There's no hope. The partner commander is whatever. I've spoken on it many times. As you can see, it's just that the partner mechanic makes containment damn near impossible and makes combo incredibly easy. But that's what we're gonna possibly work on next. Hey, I'm working on videos. All right, so in this third game, looks like I do win the die roll again. Yeah, I do win the die roll again. So brutal, having won the die roll multiple times and then losing. But unfortunately, yeah, this is very much a keep. So I think that I did make mistakes. So I pointed out the mistake in the first game I lost, and in the second one I mulliganed a hand that I should have kept. So there were multiple errors during these last couple games here that my opponent, after we talked, said that he made multiple mistakes as well. So and in these games you just can't afford to make any mistakes, not in these kind of brutal battles. All right, so here we go. I'm gonna go ahead and go for by force, and it sticks. So with that in mind, we'll go ahead and get down a Karn instead and kill that. Just trying to work around counter magic, obviously. All right, we'll Karn off the Opal there. Everything feels pretty good about this game. All right, Ugin, fantastic. Let's get Tevesh down, start drawing some cards. Opponent bounces the Tevesh, that's fine. We'll still get our cards. And we'll get some mana source into play, plus this up. Everything's going fine. And feel like there's almost, if you're looking at this going how do you lose this game? I mean, you should be asking yourself that question. How do I lose this game? It seems like I'm doing very well here, and things are going nicely. And unfortunately, there is something in the format that is another majorly problematic thing, which is that if your opponent has 3 mana, you lose the game. And look, my opponent has 3 mana. So we'll go ahead and try to disrupt. You know, I'm doing my best, just not hitting. I mean, I'm getting threats and stuff down, but I'm just not hitting on the disruptions. I have Spirit Token. I can eat that and grab the city if I want, but I am just not hitting. One of Vampiric Tutors, and then with his 3 mana, plays, oh well, here in this case it's Cabal Ritual into Wheel of Fortune. And okay, I'm going to go ahead and fetch before the wheel resolves so that I have I don't have a target. If I don't fetch before the wheel resolves and I draw the only card I can fetch, that could be a problem. Simian Spirit Guide, Desperate Ritual, yada yada yada, free mana, Jessica's Will, now has 7 mana. Now his 8 mana gets to Tainted Pact, gets to Gamble, gets to Underworld Breach, and I mean we can keep watching this if we want to, but now they have Jessica's Will, gets 7 more mana. I mean, the only play that I could have made differently here is in response to the Jessica's Will, I could have Calling the Weak. If I'd done that, my opponent would have had 1 less mana, and if I would have done that, my opponent actually wouldn't have been able to combo me off this turn without 1 more mana. But I didn't see that potentially mattering, and losing the Calling the Weak there seemed wrong. In retrospect, obviously it would have been correct. So as long as I didn't call the Spirit token and put the City of Brass into my hand, as long as I called the Thrall token. So in all 3 games, you could say I erred my way into defeat. These tiny little marginal plays certainly make a difference. And this is just another like stupid, in my view, again, Power 9 effect, 3 mana to draw 7 just seems a little bit obscene. And then, you draw 7, you just ritual out a ton of mana. You play this in absolutely like powerful than Yawgmoth's Will card, which is already completely busted, and then you go off. I feel like you can look at cards that are banned in restricted in Vintage, banned in Legacy, banned in other like Modern. If you look at those lists, those are the cards that you don't need in Commander if you want a healthy format, right? Like there are so many cards that you can just. Those lists aren't perfect, and there's probably a few you can let through, but like for the most part, you can pretty clearly fix the format if you use those lists as a guidepost. Because what we're playing is sort of the worst mix-up of vintage legacy, and modern. Sort of a horrible mishmash of it, without enough forces of wills and duresses and stuff to consistently disrupt. But that's what we're playing. All right, so we're going to move on to the next one. And here you can see we've got Rack and Ruin now showing up, and it looks like I won the roll again. So very, very lucky on the wins, and I get the win. So we're back to that pattern potentially, if it's a pattern. And yeah, this is a keep. So we'll go ahead and just run out turn 1 Grim into Talisman, Talisman into Tutor, and Tutor into Crypt. And I'll go ahead and just get it on the board because I don't want to get Jessica's Willed or Time Twisted or whatever. And yeah, by the way, my opponent would have. I've been playing with my comments off because I get tired of abusive, toxic players shouting invectives and vitriol and whining and crying and blah blah blah. So even though I label my game CEDH, people show up and then they behave that way. So I just play with my comments off these days. So I'm seeing these comments now, but yeah, my opponent was going to Jessica's Will there, and then Wheel of Fortune, Jessica's Will, Wheel of Fortune over and over as much as they needed to in order to ultimately combo me off. And obviously, the game was over. Because Breach is so stupid that it doesn't exile the cards that you cast. I cannot, like my mind is so blown that it doesn't have the Yawgmoth's Will clause that prevents things from going back into the graveyard. The fact that it feeds itself is just, like, that's what's wrong with the card. If Breach just said that cards couldn't go to your graveyard, they'd go to your exile zone, it would be a really cool, interesting card, a powerful card, but it wouldn't be utterly degenerate like it is. Like, a card that just wins with almost no effort whatsoever in combo decks. But unfortunately, they made it cheaper than Will and better than Will. Can't wrap my head around it. Anyway, opponent gets to run out with a Island, Chrome Mox, Arcane Signet. You can see where this is kind of going, right? All right, 4 cards in hand. Oh, look at that beautiful Duress. If only I had 1 more red or black, I could either Duress Rack and Ruin or Duress Mind Twist. I don't, so I'm going to have to decide which route I want to take. Do I want to take a chance here? And I decide, yeah, absolutely. If you can go for a turn 2 Mind Twist for their hand, you go for a turn 2 Mind Twist and see what happens. I could have alternately Duressed them and then like snuck out a sword or something, but it doesn't quite work out. Anyway, luckily it sticks. Ad nauseam, demonic tutor, time twist. Look at this. This is just a parade of bullshit, right? Ad nauseam, demonic tutor, time twister, Yogwill. Like, utterly insane. What are these cards doing in our format? Anyway, opponent for their turn top decks of freaking Ancient Tomb. They have no cards in hand, draws 2 mana off the top, and now we've got a serious game going on. Tevesh, Szat, and they're ahead on Tevesh, Szat turns. So quite nervous about the situation now. I'm going to go ahead and play Seer Step here and run out a Sword of Feast and Famine, equip Rog, hit my opponent so that I can untap. This is just a setup for subsequent turns. And then I'm going to go ahead and rack and ruin and cut into my opponent's mana a little bit. But opponent's going to dig their way out really quickly with Tevesh and potentially win the game here. All right, so they draw some extra cards. I'm going to lead off with the Duress, taking Peer into the Abyss, and then we're going to go ahead and play the Coalition Relic and take the City of Brass out of my opponent's hand, untapping my lands, and then allowing me to play my own Tevesh and create some thralls. I'm doing this knowing I need to get ahead on counters or I'm going to lose, but I can only do that if my opponent sacks to draw and then I plus, and then they would have to plus, and so it's a kind of a race that I don't think I can win. But keep in mind that I have the sword and it's pro-black, so there's a way I can attack this and put switch the counters into my favor. So that's kind of what I want to do. Of course, I'm hoping they don't draw mana and attack with Crom, but we'll see. They've got multiple draws here, and they actually miss. Hugely important there. And for my turn, I draw Ugin. Oh, yeah. I'm telling you, this card is very important for this deck. And you can see here that it is. So now I have to just figure out how to sequence this turn correctly. What I'd really like is some sort of duress effect. I've already burned one, of course, or a hymn or something. So I'm thinking what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and move the sword over and then go ahead and just draw 3. And see if I can find an effect that, god dang, this priest is just not working for me here. All right, I don't have it, but I can at least play Ingress Rampage and try to make them sack their Tevesh. And if they have a counter, surely they will just protect it right now. And they do, yeah, they do have a counter. So, okay, but that was bait. As it turned out, drawing extra cards mattered. Funny how that works. We're going to go ahead and take a card out of their hand here. So now they can't even force the will. An offer you can't refuse hits the bin. And I can, in Ugin you can't refuse, is going to take out that Tevesh. And then once again, hoping they don't hit land, Crom, slam it into Ugin, because if they don't, that is a... in fact, right now I don't have an answer to Crom, although in theory Priest could get me there, but also keep in mind I'm at 12, and I've been using Tomb a lot, and I've got a Crypt running. And there's no life gain here, so... there's a lot of risk happening in this hand, all right? So I finally win a coin flip there. Get Liliana. We'll go ahead and Ugin first. And now if I want this card, the Curse, I can just eat it with Tevesh, and I draw 2 cards plus 1. So this is the equivalent of drawing 3, just like if it was my commander. And I know what the 3rd card is. So we'll go ahead and do that. I'd like that before I attack. We'll go ahead and Curse the opponent. So we'll start producing mana. And then I'm going to play the Blackleaf Cliffs and use my mana productively. We'll try and play a Priest of Forgotten Gods. Sticks. And we'll go ahead and swing in. Get a gold token. Take a card out of my opponent's hand. Felwar Stone. Let's see if we can get that last card out of their hand. How about a Liliana? Is that going to work for you? Excellent. Drop City of Traders. Take Underworld Breach. Whew. Dodge a freaking bullet there. And now for my opponent's turn, Wheel of Fortune. See if this game was over? Nah, why don't you just casually draw 7 for 3 mana? And now my opponent could, if that Underworld Breach wasn't just discarded, if they drew into Breach here, they would go Artifact Mana, Lotus Petal Breach. I would just die on the spot. Right? I would just instantly lose. They would breach some extra mana into play, use Wheel of Fortune again to keep the engine turning, and what am I going to do? Just sit here and watch them lose. Like, that's how easy it is to win when you have these, like, kind of, as I said, fairly degenerate cards in the format. Contrast that to a card like, I don't know, Treasure Cruise, which would put them in the game, but wouldn't just do what just happened. Fortunately, that is not the case here. So also keep in mind, by the way, that I'm at 9 now with an active mana crypt. So I do have to be a little bit cautious here. But we'll go ahead and start by Ugin to look for something. I'll only find Grav and Cairns. That's not great. We'll go ahead and Liliana and make it harder for my opponent to interact with me. Just throw away a pain land here, a fetch. Come on. And get a Signet. I'm going to go ahead and play a Workshop here. Use the Workshop to play Stack. Stack can win the game, but this is bait because I'm already winning the game. And I'm just trying to get to a position where my opponent doesn't insta-beat me. I'll go ahead and play the Signet with the remaining mana. And then I realize, oh, wait a minute. I've got Ugin out. So this Signet costs 0 and the Smokestack costs 2. So I've actually got mana floating. And I decide from there that I am just going to go for it. I have the read that they don't have a solution here. And I'd like to get my mana untapped. So I'm going to Grasp. And once again, there's a look at my opponent's deck. And we're going to go get. Doesn't matter. Opponent concedes from there. Obviously, so if you take a look, we're just going to go get Fierce Guardianship. Once again, make it impossible for my opponent to win. Or Mind Twist. We'll just get a Mind Twist and then twist their hand. But I think the correct answer is, generally speaking, Fierce Guardianship, because we're already twisting their hand with the Sword of Feast and Famine running. I did Liliana running. And from this position, they can't really... Like, I'm actually going to have to by force my own Mana Crypt or sack it to Smokestack. But ultimately, like, my opponent can't really, they can't Crom and pressure me because the Priest is in play. And of course, Liliana can kill it and Ugin can kill it. So there's a number of reasons why that's just not going to work. So all I really want to do is protect myself from combo. And so I just go get, again, the counterspell. All right, so that's that one against Imadonkey. And we've got another one against Imadonkey. And let's see who... Oh, I get to go first again. And I get a win. All right, so a very capable hand. My opponent is also mulliganing, which is nice. And let's help him along with making that mulligan more painful with a duress. I see this. A little bit of a challenge here. I do have a Demonic Tutor, though. I don't want to take here. It's really hard. I'd like to take Fierce Guardianship, but I'm really worried about what that Imperial Seal can do because I don't really have a way to. I guess I could have taken Fierce, let my opponent Imperial Seal, and then played Shatterskull, Smashing, Soul Ring, Ragavan, right? But the problem is that I have to tap the black for the Soul Ring, and then I can't Demonic Tutor and play the Ragavan. So there's no way to... If this was Crypt, then I could do it. Or if not Ragavan, you find some prisoners. But it's the same problem. I'm missing a mana to be able to do both of those things. In which case I could just let my opponent Imperial Seal a Lotus into my hand. But with that being impossible, I decided that I'm just going to take Imperial Seal because I can play around the Fierce Guardianship to an extent, given that their commanders are 5 mana. And they don't have a 0-drop like Rogue. Alright, so opponent plays Watery Grave. But look, and the top card of my library was extra mana. Of course, I would have shuffled if I'd have made that other play, so it really wouldn't have worked out. But this is pretty amazing when you take a look at how this ends up working because I get to go land. Chrome Mox, the best thing I can do with Feed the Swarm in this match in general is going to be imprinting it on Chrome Mox and run out Soul Ring into Karn. And then this just means that now Lotus Petal and Firewall Stone are now kind of offline, which is fantastic, as well as any potential future nonsense. And so my opponent plays a Blood Crypt and passes. I get an Opal, and we'll just Demonic Tutor here. And my opponent concedes. So what I'm going to do with this Demonic Tutor, more than likely, is actually not Mind Twist my opponent because two of their 5 cards are useless. The Fierce Guardianship is near useless, so they only have 2 potentially useful cards here. So I'm not going to do the Mind Twist thing. What I'm actually going to do with this Demonic Tutor is go get Smokestack, slam the Smokestack, and then from there they can play like They can't really use the the Lotus Petal to feed the smokestack because Karn will eat it, make it go away. They can use a Felwar Stone so they can do that, but it's quickly going to overwhelm them, and they'll just end up with no permanence. So opponent knows what the deal is and goes ahead and packs it in. And we move on to the next game. All right. And in this game, I am going second. Okay, and I'm losing. And okay, I've got an insane hand, right? I've got first turn commander if I want it. And my opponent leads off with Workshop into Relic into, well, okay, I thought I had an insane hand, and I do, but God Pharaoh is showing up a little bit late. If I would have gone first, right, I would have gone City of Traders Grim, pass, for example. And then my opponent did all this, and then I could go second turn like God Pharaohs, or I could go second turn Tutor, you know, and do something. But yeah, I'm just going to go for it here and hope that I can find, I don't know, something good. Opponent even has a counterspell for me. Gives me an offer I can't refuse. A couple treasure tokens I could potentially use. I have to decide how to use them. I decide to save them. I guess I could have demonic tutored there, but instead my opponent windfalls. Oh god, it's so brutal. Draws, what do they draw? 6 cards. Gets to get probe me. Pukes out so much mana, right? There's no containment possible here at this point. Tevesh is down. I mean, this game is hopeless. I can will into some extra mana and such. Get my commander down. Try to like find my way into this game somehow. And I realize that I'm not in this game. It's hopeless. My opponent's going to play their 4/4, attack my Tevesh, draw extra cards. What am I supposed to do with this? It's just absolutely hopeless. So we just concede. I just concede and move on. That was the best I could do that turn, but the best I could do was nowhere near good enough. All right, we'll play the next game here against Imadonkey, and this time opponent wins the die roll and gets to go first, and also wins the game, possibly as a result. So this is not really capable, right? Ragavan going first is pretty strong, but I take a mulligan here. Here, this is first turn commander. This is keepable. All right, so we'll go ahead and mulligan this way. I'm going to get rid of the Necro. If I'm going to be playing my commander early, that's going to be the card draw that I need, so I'm not going to worry about that too much. All right, Rog Lotus. I mean, this is an insane start. It sticks. We draw cards. Everything looks good. Like, this is what this deck wants to be doing. We have Disruption. I mean, this looks great. So I'm finally going to win a game going second. Instead, I thought seize my opponent. They have LDV in response. We'll have to skip ahead to get past all of that. And let's see what's over there. Let's take a peek. LED, Dark Ritual, Brain Freeze, Swan Song. Guess what? I'm dead. Do you see it? I can make my opponent discard one of these cards, but I am dead. They just stacked their deck. What's the next card on their deck? The correct answer, of course, is Survey Says instant death combo. If you put these 3 cards together anywhere on your deck, in your graveyard, in your hand, it doesn't matter. As long as you have them, as long as you can play the one card that actually kills you, you're good to go. And so there's nothing I can do here because the card that's going to kill me is on the top of their library. So I take, I guess, Dark Ritual. Might as well. Go ahead and I just like kill my own vault. And the reason I do this is because if my opponent is going to play, if the card that they tutored for happened to have been like a draw 7 or whatever, I wanted to get more cards out of my hand. And I mean, I can always abrade if they have something, and this kind of puts it in the bank for Tevesh. But of course, the card that they got is instant death. And here it is, Underworld Breach. Just another insane, dumb combo. And I mean, what am I supposed to do here? If you don't understand what's happening, they're going to sack the LED, discard their hand, which carries Brain Freeze in it. They've got 3 blue. They're going to then Brain Freeze themselves. They've played 3 cards. They're going to put 9 cards in their graveyard. 3 of them will fuel a Lion's Eye Diamond. 3 of them will fuel a Brain Freeze. And then they'll put 15 cards in their graveyard. 3 makes a LED. 3 makes a Brain Freeze. And then they'll put 21 cards in their graveyard. And they're going to keep doing that until they have no cards in their graveyard. They'll crack the diamond a bunch of times and make sure they have enough mana for any counter spells that they might feel that they might need. And then they will play Thassa's Oracle. And I've died. So my opponent has 2 cards in hand, two lands in play, 4 cards in hand. I Thoughtseize them, and there's no way that I can stop them from killing me. That's a card that needs to be freaking banned in my view. Like, why the F is this card a real card? And if this was like a group play, and there's 4 of us sitting here, it kills the whole table because it's Thassa Oracle combo. We're all dead. Everyone's dead. Like, what is this crap? I do not understand how the freaking community, the Sheldon and all these guys are not banning garbage like LED, Breach, like nonsense. But to my opponent's credit, very well executed, very well played. Now, you might say to yourself, well, Nate, dummy, why didn't you take the LED? Well, because, and I can understand what you're thinking, but let's say they didn't even have Dark Ritual. Let's say they didn't have any of that, and I did take the LED. Well, if I took the LED here, they'd play the, so the LED's gone, but see, they did have the Dark Ritual, right? And that's the problem. So what would happen is they would have Dark Ritualed and then played the Breach, and then that would have given them, the LED would be in the graveyard here, and then it'd give them just enough cards to where they could then, well, I'm going to back up. Maybe I made a mistake here. Hold on. Now, if I would have taken the LED, they could have Dark Ritual, Breach, play the LED, but then, oh, well, yeah, sorry. Then they play the LED, and then it doesn't matter because then they sack the LED, and then they discard their hand, which puts the Brain Freeze in the graveyard, which allows them to then Brain Freeze me. I'm pretty sure that there was no way around it. It would have made it harder, though, and there's a possibility that that would have been correct. Perhaps I should have taken the lead, but I'm not sure it would have made much of a difference. They could have also just sat on the Swan Song and then Swan Songed, like waited a turn to go off, and there's not much I could do about it. And then from there, they would have enough cards in their graveyard, so it ultimately wouldn't matter anyway. Because the problem with the LED is that it fuels their graveyard, right? So it doesn't matter if they have a bunch of cards they can't cast. There's no way to prevent them from getting Breach fuel into their graveyard once the LED is used, because it provides the fuel and it puts the cards where they need to be to cast them, because Breach doesn't have the Yawgmoth's Will Clause on it. So the Yawgmoth's Will Clause being, to exile the cards from the graveyard. So that was the reason for it. I probably, in hindsight, I would say that was a mistake. I should have made it harder for them. But, I mean, I don't know. I honestly don't think the outcome was any different. And it's insane that for 2 mana you can just kill your opponent. It just feels wrong to me. I don't know. Like, maybe I'm just crazy. Like, does that feel right? Like, back in the old days, I mean, you could channel Fireball on 3, and that was considered absurd. And channel was restricted, effectively making the combo almost impossible to pull off. And that was a terrible combo. It's a garbage combo. Now, I mean, I don't know. It just feels wrong to me. Anyway, we're going to move on to the next game, though. And I mean, that's the whole point of this video, is to let you take a look and see if you think that what's happening in these videos is wrong. Not just what my opponent's doing, though. What I'm doing, too. Don't get me wrong on that. Anyway, I'm going first, and I win. So once again, we're back to the pattern broke for a little while, and we're right back to it. All right, this is a keepable hand. Of course, I can play turn 2 Tevesh if I want to. I'm going to go ahead and Imperial Seal right off the get-go. But I decided I don't want to actually play turn 2 Tevesh. Opponent gambles into a crypt, probably into a Signet. But fortunately, I didn't go for the Lotus to get the Tevesh. I went for this play, and I did this specifically because I had the Abrade in my hand, and of course, a fast start. I can go, like, in this manner, I can mitigate some of an opponent's fast start, and this is precisely why I made this play here. Allows me to develop while disrupting, which is the key with this deck. Develop and disrupt at the same time as often as you can. When it gets a signet here, and then I draw for the turn. I'm still quite nervous. They have 3 mana, which means that they can kill me any number of ways. But I'm going to go ahead and Chandra for some mana here. Play the sword. Equip the sword and go ahead and play the clamp and then swing in. Let's make it harder for them to potentially kill me here. Take another card out of their hand. And, ooh, Jessica's Will, yeah. And then play a Dark Confidant. So I can still lose the game here quite easily, but I'm doing my best to try to, like, fuel myself up. So I see this and I'm really worried because literally if my opponent draws a card, he's going to have 2 cards in hand and they could literally kill me this turn, depending on what they've got. Fortunately for me, that doesn't happen immediately. Instead, my opponent resets with a twist. Makes sense. And I have a nice disruptive hand off of the twister, which is really good. And of course, I've got lots of mana and fuel. So we'll go ahead and grab an Inquisition there, which is super impactful. And we'll Inquisition to see what's going on over there. My opponent has Swan Song, dang it. All right. And we're doing this pre-combat, of course, because I want to get the sword mana. So I'm going to go ahead and play City of Traders here. Equip the Paradise Mantle, and then use the Dark Confidant as well as the Blood Crypt to go get a always same, Fierce Guardianship. Let's go ahead and take a card. Well, I'm going to produce some mana and and tap my Mana Crypt, I'm sorry, and Fiery Confluence away the Arcane Signet and the Dimer Signet. Now that I have, I'm doing it from the safety of a counter spell. And then we'll go ahead and swing in, make my opponent discard as well. And then move the, I'm going to move the sword over because I'd like to ultimately sack Rog to either the Skull Clamp or my commander. So we'll move that over to the bird token. But that also gives me a 4/4 that can protect Chandra if my opponent has a way to spin out a Crom. Because I wouldn't want to waste my only effectively Force of Will on their creature. And of course, I just want to Rollick it. But if they can somehow like push their commander through, I'd prefer to have a blocker here, but mainly the reason is just Rog with the clamp. I'm not tapping the other 2 mana. I'd love to, get the Crucible down or whatever, but I'm not tapping the other 2 mana because I want to sit on YFSP in case my opponent plays a tutor that puts the card on top of their library. All right, so Blood Crypt, Dark Ritual, yeah, we're going to let that go. If it's not a creature, we'll Fierce Guardianship. If it is, we'll Rollick. All right, it's not a creature. At least that's what I was thinking. Oh, so I let it go. The reason I let it go is because there's no direct payout here, and I can actually kill this thing with the bird token. That's the other thing, is that I can just kill the Tevesh Szat by attacking. And this is very, very, very precious to me. And anytime I can answer a play without wasting a counterspell, that's what I'm going to try to do. All right, so I found it by force, and ooh, GPS, huge. All right, so we're gonna go ahead and ultimate Chandra. Oh yeah, that was the other thing. I forgot. Sorry, I can Chandra to kill Tevesh. There's no way to keep a Tevesh in play right now for my opponent. So we're gonna go for a GPS and deal 5 to Tevesh. And with Godpharaoh's statue and Chandra's ultimate, making it impossible for my opponent to keep anything in play. And for me, ripping into their hand, and of course they know that I have a Force of Will hiding in the side, there's pretty much nothing my opponent can do, and they concede that game to me. And we move on to the next one, which was, I think we were on a series of 3 wins. Yeah, right there. 455. And who's going first? Oh, I'm going first again. So another, and then we know I've got the next one there. By doing it this way, it helps me track which game I need to look at also. All right, so I've got a mulligan into this. This is quite nice. We'll go ahead and keep that. Get rid of Toxic Deluge. It's as useless as a card can be in this format without being completely useless. Sorry, in this match. But obviously not a card that we're going to ever cut from the deck. I'm going to go ahead and call and go for it. I'm going to go for it. Do they have a Force of Will? Nope. Okay, let's get in this game. That gets me a couple of guys that I can use with the intent. Hopefully, I need some mana, of course. So if my opponent like bounces Tevesh and I can find some mana, I'm still okay. That doesn't happen, fortunately. So let's go ahead and draw some cards. And okay, we're going to go Blood Crypts. And with that, I can tutor. So with the tutor, what I'm looking for is more mana. I've got this Ugin waiting in the wings. I can replay Rog here and draw 3 cards. This is just good. So nervous though. I haven't really disrupted my opponent much at all, and they can potentially just win the game. Ugh. There we go. Okay, so they turbo out of Tevesh. Fortunately, I have Ugin. Ugin's just amazing in this deck. Let's go ahead and draw 3. And boom, hit the Mox Diamond. Dust Bowl, throw away Mana Confluence, and go for Ugin. Does it stick? Oh yeah, lovely day. Boom. And of course now my artifacts cost 2 less, but that's neither here nor there at this point. Alright, so my opponent then goes for a Brainstorm. And I'm going to go ahead and make a Spirit Token, and look what I find, Deflecting Swat. Why don't we just eat that Deflecting Swat right into my hand there and draw a couple cards while we're at it. Beautiful, feeling much better about the situation. I've got GPS going. With a workshop, this actually costs 4. I wish the cost would actually change, or it would show, I don't know. Anyway, it'd be nice. But at any rate, I'm going to go ahead and Brutality and see what's going on over there. Look at this. Dark Ritual, Consult, all my opponent, and Pact. All my opponent needed was a blue, and this game was literally over. Disgusting. All right, we're going to go ahead and take the Consult out of the opponent's hand, and we're going to nerf the Dark Ritual, the Will, all this stuff here, and make this basically unwinnable for my opponent. We're going to Bifrost them, and then for 4 mana, with the GPS. I actually had forgotten it was 4 for some reason, and then remembered. And was like, oh, okay, well, whatever. So we're good to go here. I've got God Pharaohs, I've got Swat, and obviously there's literally nothing. We know, my opponent knows. They go ahead and scoop, and of course with the Dust Bowl, there's no like climbing out of this either. So they can't even play. They can play a 0-drop here. That's it, and the main 0-drop in the deck is gone. So from here we just pick them apart. And so rather than waiting for that to happen, my opponent scoops and we move on to the next game. And in game 3 of this small string of wins, I get to go first again. And look at that. All right, now we know that the opponent is actually going to win the next one. Next 2, I believe. So we'll go ahead and set those up. Okay, great starting hand. We'll go ahead and keep this. And dig right into the opponent's hand immediately, hopefully. All right, let's see what goes on. Oof, what is going on over here? So this is pretty gross. This is a weird one. I want to take the Crypt. Oh, excuse me. There is some temptation to take the Petal, though, because Petal into Vampiric can possibly kind of work their way out of it. And if I take the Petal and they don't play the Crypt, then I can like Mana Crypt, Yawgmoth's Will, and replay Arid Mesa, and then replay Inquisition and take the Crypt. If they do play the Crypt, on the other hand, they don't really have anything to do with it. But leaving my opponent with a Mana Crypt is not something I'm generally in the business of. Like I'm not really wanting to do, right? So I'll go ahead and take that, make it hard for them to figure out how to do what they need to do. And in the meantime, I can play my own Crypt. And Clamp combo, Crypt and Clamp combo, and get some more cards. And this, of course, if I would have done that beforehand, I might have considered giving them the Crypt because I drew the Fiery Confluence. So a bit of an oopsie there probably, but even with the Crypt, it's just too risky. The problem is if they did draw a land off the top like they just did, and I left them with the Crypt, and they went land, Crypt, Jessica's Will, I could just lose on the spot. So that's the other reason for making that play there. All right, so they're going to go underground, and now they have a Vampiric ready to go. I'm, of course, going to Thoughtseize immediately. and let my opponent, we're going to hide all these. It's going to have Vampiric in response, and then we'll see what we can take. So with this being the options, my two best options here end up ultimately being Lotus Petal or Jessica's Will. With Crypt out of the way, there's no way that I can think of for them to play Jessica's Will off the top. So I really want to take Lotus Petal here and leave them with the Will, and then we'll go after that in a moment. I'll go ahead and try to dump some cards though, and get set up for some more card drawing. All right, so my opponent then for their turn has no play, but that doesn't mean that they can't make a play soon. They're probably just in setup phase. For my turn, I get to Yogg Will, and my opponent, yeah, scoops it up. Obviously, like from there, I just get to rip them apart with the Inquisition Thoughtseize and get a land while I'm at it, and then draw 2 cards. It's a bit much, and so my opponent goes ahead and concedes. All right, so now I believe we're on a string of 2 Imadonkey wins. Like, yep, there. Starting with this one at 519. And this took hours running through these. So, all right, my opponent is going first. Where's Bryce? Okay, and this is capable. I mean, this is turn 2 commander, right? First turn Vamp, go get Lotus. Second turn commander. So we'll keep this. Unfortunately, it doesn't really have great disruption or anything. It has the Dreadbore, but it just depends on what happens here. Opponent gets turn 1 Mana Vault. Oh, does not run out Tevesh, which might have been something that I could have addressed, but instead Necros, and I die. I mean, I don't know what to tell you. They're going to draw like 30 cards or whatever and put together whatever combo they need, and I'm dead. So, you know, cool, Necro, the 40 life format. That's a card. And I am, of course, running it because it is just that stupid. It's just like I'm running Ad Nauseam and such. But I don't believe these cards should be run. Like, they shouldn't be available, and I've been saying this for, frankly, years. Because they make games stupid. They make games really stupid. All right. So, opponent mulligans to 6, 5, 4 cards. But is going first once again, which is more important. But they are mulliganing the 4 cards of their choice, right? So when that happens, Ancient Tomb, Jeweled Lotus, and I have no interactivity. I have no way to deal with a turn 1 Tevesh Szat. I will be 2 turns behind, and by then I will be dead, and my opponent's hand will be full again. And I have absolutely no interest in facing turn 1 Tevesh Szat. If I do it to you, I think you should just concede because you're dead, unless you've got a way to deal with the Tevesh. And if you do it to me, and I don't have a way to deal with the Tevesh, I'm going to concede. So, yeah. Thank you, Jeweled Lotus, for making a game interesting. Anyway, we move on. So that was 2 wins. That was in the 5 o'clock region. Where were we? 519. All right. So I get a couple wins next. Aren't these games interesting? Well, I don't know who won the die roll, but I do know who wins. All right. So these are the ones post 5. Yeah. So 520 and 533. All right. Isn't magic fun? And, Imadonkey goes first. So this time it's flipped. He's going first. I'm getting a win. But you can see now I've gotten Fugue in the deck. So this is new. This is a change. I do not think this is a keepable hand. However, and this hand's borderline could be. First turn Rag going first is pretty important. And then second turn we can do whatever. I think this will probably be okay. So let's get rid of the Liliana and see if we can make this work. Oh, I'm going second actually. So first turn Rag quite a bit weaker going second, but I mean, I don't know. All right. So my opponent, of course, has 3 mana on turn 1, which is just kind of par for the course, right? Gambles into a LED, plays a Volcanic, runs out of Brain Freeze, targeting themselves. So I'm thinking that I'm dead. Basically, all my opponent has to do now is just play Breach, and I'm dead. So with that in mind, I need to make sure this turn's pretty good. All right, I'm going to attack with Ragavan. We'll see what we can do. Rag's going to produce a Alchemist's Retrieval. So I could possibly bounce like an Is It Signet if I want to pay the cleave cost. I don't have time for that though. So the real question is, what do I do here? Because I can go kind of in on the Death Cloud, but then my opponent gets to keep the Signet. It's a little scary. I'm not really sure what's right here. So I decide that I'm going to have to take a risk. I'm going to have to play Chandra, play the map, and then if my opponent has Breach, I'm dead. I mean, I could stop it in a way that would cause me to lose the game, or I can do this. And if my opponent doesn't have, like, let's say they've got in their hand, they've got Tutor and they're like, I don't know, maybe they're missing black or whatever. Maybe they're setting up, but they don't quite have it. This gives me an opportunity to possibly win the game. And I'd rather take a chance on them not having what they need so that I can win the game than play not to lose and then just guarantee that I'll ultimately be too far behind to catch up. So the opponent does not have black here, which is pretty important, and does not have Breach immediately, or Wheel of Fortune, or Time Twister, or whatever. So I get a reprieve. They get to crom down into my Chandra, but that's not lethal. And with that not being lethal, I'm going to go ahead and attack with Rag and create a treasure, get a Diabolic Intent. We'll go ahead and Chandra for some extra mana and play a land. Go fetch a Badlands. I'm going to intent to protect my play with the Swat. And then I'm going to float a bunch of mana and Dark Ritual. My opponent gets to draw an extra card. And then I'm going to go for a big old Death Cloud for 3. And we'll see if this sticks. So that'll take care of these 3 cards, that card, the 3 cards in their hand. I'll lose all of this. And then it's just my opponent's Is It Signet against an active Chandra and a map. So who wins that one? And in my opponent forces, of course, I have Swat. I would have loved for my tutor to have been a little bit different, like, for example, something to kill the Signet, but I felt this is so critical that it resolves that it wasn't worth, like, I needed to go this route. It wasn't worth trying to win more when I just need to win. All right. So Cloud resolves, which is fantastic. Now my opponent can't, if they have Breach, if they drew a Breach, they still need to draw a land, not dead yet. And maybe I can find some artifact kill or whatever. So we'll get some mana here. Use it to get, I decided to get Ancient Tomb, Tomb rather, and play a Rogue, Rograkh. And the reason I do that over the going to get a black here, that possibly was incorrect, but I'm thinking that getting 2 mana here. So now I'm going to start removing cards, and I hit a Graven Cairns. Frustrating. And deal 2 to my opponent with Chandra. I remove a card, and then finally hit a Paradise Mantle, which will give me black. Now I get some relief. The reason that I did that was because I felt that the Tomb was the Tomb plus Chandra, like the chance that my opponent top deck Breach land is very low, and I was willing to take that chance because if Tomb and Chandra together meant that any black source would then allow me to get Tevesh, and then from there 100% I win, right? I'm not sure what's going on here. That Signet should be dead. What is going on here? I guess I wait a turn? Seems I did. All right, well, at any rate, that Signet's dead now. Okay. I'm not quite sure that I don't think I was playing my best this game is what it comes down to, but fortunately, I was playing well enough. All right. So from here, it's just sort of run through the paint by numbers, right? My opponent still has no plays and basically is over. I mean, they might have a handful of rituals and like artifact mana and stuff, and that could be good. That could certainly get them a win. But obviously, at this point, they don't know it. But if they don't have a tutor, they can't win. And more importantly, next turn, I just ultimate Chandra. I'm not sure why it didn't ult here, but I ult Chandra next turn, and then we can just, you know, take 5, take 5, take 5. We can finish this game off very, very quickly. So, all right. So we'll move on to the next game against Imadonkey. And is that the 533 game or not? No. Okay. And who went first? I went first. Makes sense. And then I believe he's going to win the next couple. So this was the 533 game. I'm going to set that up before we continue. So so he wins 1, I win 2. So we'll set that up. So it's Imadonkey and then Nate. And we'll get back into the game. All right, so here we are again. Great hand. Obviously a keep. When it has Gemstone Caverns, throws away a Yogwill to it. I'm going to run down Rogue into throwing away a rag to Rogue. And I'm going to decide, because my opponent's low on cards, they already went down 2 cards with the Gemstone and went first. I'm going to hymn them rather than drop my commander on the first turn. And I do hit a Misty and a Brain Freeze. The Brain Freeze unfortunately works no matter where it's at. Card, hand, grave, whatever. Once you've got Breach, it doesn't care. But hitting the land there could potentially be clutch. So for turn 2, my opponent runs out of Felwar Stone. Down to only 2 cards in hand. All right, I'm going to get the Rakdos Signet down, and let's play Calling the Weak into the commander. Make some guys and pass. And my opponent does nothing there. All right, I've got a Skull Clamp. Let's see if that sticks. It does. Wonderful. Go ahead and draw some cards. Draw some more cards. Looking for some disruption. There's some disruption. And we'll go ahead and clamp and draw more cards. Play the Mana Vault for free, for the floating artifact mana there. And then let's go ahead and disrupt. I don't play Urborg here because I don't want to give my opponent, triple black for a Necro. So we can get a Thoughtseize, and look at this. Consult, Chrome Mox, Gamble. So if I don't disrupt here, what my opponent could possibly do next turn is they could draw. If I don't make them discard, they draw. And they're basically, if they gamble into a Thassa's Oracle, they can put together a kill here. Basically, is what it comes down to. But fortunately, I do hit the consult, so now they've just got the gamble and the Mox. All right, so for their turn, yeah, they gamble and they discard Thassa's Oracle. So cool. So now they've got Chrome Mox and an Unknown, and I'm just going to, play the Gilded Lotus, make some more guys, start the clamp action, destroy some more of their mana, clamp again, get into their hand, and then finally my opponent gives up. I'm going to play Port, of course, so we'll get hand, we'll get mana, mana, hand, mana, and my opponent gives up. All right, so next game is the one against Imadonkey here, where he is going to get the win. Yep. And, hey, we broke the rules. I think I go first this time. Yeah. And this is a hand that can play a turn 3 commander, and it's got a little bit of disruption if it's the right kind. So this is keepable. I hope I don't mulligan. Yeah, my opponent double mulligans over there. So this seems fine going first. It's not great. And look at this. My opponent double mulligans and then Gemstone Caverns. But now it's like I'm going second, throwing away a Chain of Vapor. And as you'll see, that certainly matters. All right, I'm going to play Rog. I'm going to play Urborg. LED. Oh, lovely. I'm so glad that card exists. Into Tevesh, Szat. Who cares that they have an empty hand? They now have Tevesh. And guess what? I have no answer to it at all. And my turn 3 commander is just miles and miles and miles away from being useful. I can try to find some prisoners and see if they have any solutions, maybe? I don't know. I get my Lotus. I'm way late to the party with this, though. Let's see if we can find ourselves a solution. Opponent's drawing more cards. Rites of Flames. Plays a Crom. In response, I'll go ahead and YFSP, finding Pure through into the Abyss. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. I don't have 7 mana, so I'm not going to be able to play it. I should have just taken a land there, frankly. All right, they attack Tevesh. This is even worse for me. There's a Death Cloud that I could play, but it's not great. I might have to play it anyway, though. I probably should have just played it on 1 or 2 or whatever, but, you know, I go ahead and play it for 3. So we'll go ahead and dump whatever I can here. I'm trying to stay in the game, but I'm just not sure that I have much hope. Opponent's on 10 with Tevesh. So I do have a way that I can keep myself from losing, so I can make him discard and hit that. I'll take a Rain of Filth. And then if I can find a red mana, I can Shatter Skull Smashing to buy more time. These are all just like stall tactics, like please don't lose the game immediately. Didn't find one there. Do I find a red source? No. And from there, Tevesh ultimates, Crom and Tevesh, taking control of my commander kills me. Tevesh Szat is, well, another out to victory. But the main problem, of course, was Lotus. Once again, Lotus takes a win. It'd be interesting. I guess that's the other thing. I could have chalked it up like reason for win. And, you know, we could, you know, Lotus, Lotus, Cabal Ritual, Lotus, Breach, Time Twister, Wheel of Fortune, like just all the crap that needs to be banned, but whatever. Anyway, so next 2 wins. So we are focused on, where was it? Lost track. Right here. No, right here. 624, 629. So let's scroll down. We're getting to the end of the series. So we're going to go win-win, then lose-win, lose-lose. So it's going to be lose-win, lose-lose. And then win-lose, win-lose, win-win. Series done, and then what we'll do is we'll just do a quick we'll check column C. Seriously? Why? Thank you. And then criteria is going to be N. So there's a number of games that I won, and then we'll do the same exact thing for I's. And so there's your count. I was closer than I thought. And then E2, comma, sum of, what is that, E2? Yeah. So this is N, I, and then total. And then win percentage. This will be G2 divided by E2. Oh no, other way around. And then we will grab this one and put it here, and then we'll just change it from E2 to F2. And then we'll just set these in the form of percentages. So we'll just round it. So yeah, so there's the win rates between my opponent and me. But now what I'm really interested in is who went first. So we'll count all these up, and then we're going to do the same kind of math and find out what the percentage of going first was and see how the percentage of going first compares to the win rate. So that's what's coming. But we'll go ahead and hit these next few games up. So we're in a 10th from the bottom. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. All right, here we go. 624. Normally I would do a little bit more to make that spreadsheet less, a little bit more functional, and but for just the down and dirty calculations, it's fine. All right, so I am going second here. Very interesting. All right. Caps lock back on. Also, let me just hit a quick save on that in case anything crashes. All right, so I'm going second. I'm Mulligan. Oh, well, yeah. No wonder I won. All right. Opponent gets to see their demise here, potentially. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and play Rog, play the Crypt, get the Soul Ring down, fetch. This kind of is to work around possibility of something like Spell Pierce, which I haven't seen, but you know, you might as well do it. I'm going to call Styx. Let's fugue and see what's going on over there. Pyretic Ritual Narset. No wonder my opponent was excited to, you know, this is a good keep, right? Again, though, so fortunately, I can just run the Dynamo, and I have just enough mana to play my commander, but that's not the play we're going to make. We're going to make the play that I mentioned before. We're going to grasp, and look how much mana is left over. It's so perfect. So we're going to grasp the opponent for a Fierce Guardianship. Once again, let's go grab their Force of Will. Opponent goes for Narset, we'll counter that. And then from there, we'll go ahead and play our commander and go ahead and take over this game as best as we can. And we'll just play Rog here. So next turn I can play Ugin and play Grim Monolith for free. I've got plenty of mana to do it. All right, so let's draw some cards. Ooh, Rack and Ruin, Demonic Tutor, very nice. Excuse me. We'll play the Opal. Once again, Chrome Mox and Feed the Swarm, best friends in this particular matchup. I'm going to Demonic Tutor and just make sure that my opponent can't. I don't want him interfering with the Ugin play. So the card that I'm going to go get most likely is Dust Bowl, actually. So go get Dust Bowl, play Ugin, have one floating, play the Grim for free, play the Dust Bowl, and then bowl them and make a Dork. Imprint the Chrome Mox with the Feed the Swarm if I want to. Just so that I can work around if they get me draw 7s or you know, just because wills. But good to go, and we'll move on to the next game after 624 to 629. See who goes first on this one. And once again, back to pattern. I go first. Okay, and yeah, take a look. This is a pretty good hand, better than it looks. It isn't necessarily as fast of a commander, but it does have potential. And of course, going first, it's very disruptive. So let's go ahead and ritual a Inquisition. We'll start there. Necro Petal Talisman. Oof. Okay. So I can Thoughtseize him after this Inquisition, and then I can Vampiric Tutor. Or I can just play Confidant. So those are my two routes. So what do I want to do? Well, I really would like to get the Confidant down and then potentially Vamp during upkeep. In order to start fueling, I need an engine going right away if I can help it. And the problem here is my opponent's got a lot of fast mana, but if I don't take that Necro, which is what I'm going to take, and my opponent top decks a Dark Ritual or any other way to like cheat it out, and I just take their mana hoping to disrupt them and then Thoughtseize them later, I'm going to feel really bad about that. On the flip side, the argument for leaving the Necro and taking something like Lotus Petal or Talisman is that, most likely Petal, is that, I don't know, most likely, maybe I'd take the Talisman. The argument for that, though, is that if they don't, they draw, they play their Petal or whatever, and they pass, and then I take the Necro at my convenience on the next turn. By taking the Necro here, they can play both the Petal and the Talisman, and I have nothing to take on the next turn with the Thoughtseize. But having said all that, the Necro is just so dangerous, it's so risky that I just can't possibly leave them with that card in their hand. So I take that way, and we'll go ahead and play the Confidant. And we'll see if we can find some, maybe we can find some artifact kill or whatever to deal with these artifacts or some other disruption. All right, Badlands comes down. We know about that. Petal comes down. I'm assuming the Talisman's coming. And yeah, it comes down. Okay. Amber, very nice there, actually. So Graven Cairns, also very nice, because now I can actually just play an opposition agent if I want to, which is great. And I think I might. All right. For my opponent's turn, they play Urborg. Okay. And Urborg and... okay, well, in response to that, I could put what I want on top. but I have no idea what I want. Or I can flash out Opposition Agent and at least protect myself against like further tutoring and stuff. So I think I'm going to do that. This also saves me against like, I don't know. Well, it doesn't save me against a lot, but it does allow me to pressure my opponent, possibly a Tevesh Szat if it were to come out. And yeah, we can forget about all this. All right, I do at least draw some more disruption. Opponent takes a peek at my hand and passes for the turn. Confidant finds a statue. Finds me a GPS, which is nice. And then I find some prisoners. Also good. So let's start off by dread fuging and seeing what's going on over there. And my opponent just scoops. Thankfully, if my opponent didn't scoop here, if I dread fugue and I take like, let's say they have, I don't know what they could have. But let's say whatever that card is, I take it out of their hand. I play a land, and then I play Jeska's Will. I would get 6 mana from it, and the 3 cards. And I would take the 6 mana and just plunge it directly into the God Pharaoh. So the God Pharaoh is actually coming down this turn. The problem with Dread Fugue is that the card I really want to take is like Force of Will or Force of Negation, and it doesn't hit either one. So this is the thing that's like really kind of dicey about this play. Might have been better to me to just go for it with the Jeska's Will here right away, and then get 7 mana, and having not hit a land drop, I could potentially play a land, have an 8th mana, and then with the 8 mana, I could God Pharaohs and destroy the Talisman. That might have been better, but you know, I took this line and my opponent conceded, so I guess it all worked out. All right, E26. So after that, we're gonna go with our yeah, E26. What am I talking about? We are on this one. So no, this one here, 634. Yeah, I think. We'll see if we've seen this one. I don't think I've seen this one. All right, so I'm gonna obviously take a mulligan here. That's a keeper. It's not great, but it'll do. It's got some disruption. It's got some speed. I mean, it's solid. And I'm going first. And I think I'm losing. If I've lined it up correctly. All right, so we're gonna go this route and pass. When it has just a volcanic. All right, for turn 2, I'm gonna go ahead and sack. I'm going for Jeska's is what I want to do. And I get swan songed. Okay. Opponent then runs out a Thassa's Oracle, Demonic, and I'm like, thank you very much, Sheldon Menery and Rules Committee, for making this possibility. I'd be very depressed if my opponent could, you know, actually had to play Magic rather than killing me on turn 2. But hey. Here we are. I'm just so sick of it. Like, it's just so dumb. I don't understand, why is that a thing? Like, why is it okay that that's a thing? It's just torture, this horrible design, this horrible ban list. It's just, I don't understand it whatsoever. But it is what it is. We move on to the next game. 636. It's not like I'm not doing absurd, gross stuff. I'm not saying that. I'm not saying I'm opposed to that. I'm not saying my opponent's bad for doing it. In fact, I appreciate the fact that my opponent's showing me my weaknesses. But I don't really find it fun. Like, I just don't. I don't understand what is fun about playing Thassa's Demonic Consult. Like, what is... Like, if I was trying to teach my family how to play Magic the Gathering, and we sat down and we were playing, and I explained to them how it works, how the game works, and we got into some maybe advanced explanations a little bit, talking about card advantage and mana advantage and stuff. And we're like, okay, we've got there. We've gotten past the you know, play a creature and turn it sideways, the Grizzly Bear Lightning Bolt Giant Growth phase, and we're on to the you know, Thought Season Counterspell Strip Mine phase. So we're into advanced Magic now, and we're gonna sit down. We're gonna play, and they're like, "Okay, this is my first tournament. Ready? Go." First turn Swan Song, second turn Thassa's Oracle Consult, and they would go. I don't ever want to come to a tournament ever again. Like, I don't even want to play this format. This is stupid. Why am I here? Like, and what would I tell them? Oh, yeah, I forgot to mention that you know, that you're quite often you're just not going to get to play Magic whatsoever. I just forgot about that part. You know, it's a kind of a dumb game, honestly. Like you'll get more excitement out of Pokemon. You know. Anyway, I don't know what to tell them. But anyway, we're going to move on to the next game. I obviously have to Mulligan, regretfully. This is kind of broken, but kind of isn't good enough. This one's keepable. It's not exciting, but I do get a turn 2 Chandra, potentially some other disruption to go with it. This will work. This is very similar to a hand that came up earlier in the video where I was going for an early Chandra here. I could imprint this, but I can't cast any of these cards at instant speed, so there's no point really. And as it turns out, I kept the Rampage, and I kept the Spree, and I got rid of the Abrade, and it turns out that keeping the Spree here was pretty awesome. And look at City of Traders nerfing my opponent's Felwar Stone. Very nice. Okay, so let's go ahead and Chrome Mox away the Rampage. So now that I have like multiple black sources, which is great, we get to play Chandra. And with double red, we have a delicious Shattering Spree. Boom, boom. And we'll pass for the turn. Of course, this is only like super broken because my opponent's start is broken. If there were no targets, this would be pretty garbage. So I don't mind broken starts to counter broken starts. I'm just more frustrated by broken starts that have no counter, you know, like the Thassa's and stuff like that. Anyway, so my opponent, the card they probably were going to play off the Felwar was the Clamp. From here, though, of course, as you can see, for the most part, what is my opponent supposed to do here, right? It's just completely absurd on the other side of the table. We'll go ahead and draw some extra cards, play land, kill that thing, play a smokestack, and let's see if my opponent can kill me now because they have to actually win the game right now or GPS will say nope, and my opponent does not have the ability to win the game right now, so they scoop. Oh, I forgot to track who went first on that one. I'm getting fatigued, I think. Let's take a look again. Also, I guess I was complaining a bit about dumb stuff. Looks like I went first, so we true to form. The pattern continues. All right, so we're on to a couple of losses here, and we're getting to the end of the video. So hopefully you've stuck around and have done so and are entertained. Of a insane start, we're certainly going to keep that. And I'm going first. So you would think that I would win this one. All right, but obviously spoiler is that I'm not. So I lead this way rather than going with the Saga because this allows me to confluence. If they get a fast start, I can do a turn 2 confluence. And that seems more important to me than... And if they don't get a fast start, I can go turn 2 Commander off the tomb. But what if their fast start involves temporary mana, like a Lotus? Well, in that case, I guess I can play catch up. Oh, into a Force of Will. Well, the Fugue wouldn't have done much for me there, unless this was well, it was a blue card. So, of course, their turn involved Lotus and the Spirit Guide, just Lotus Petals, Lotuses, Rituals. Brutal. Opponent's tutoring, and you know at this point that what they got was the Commander counter, right? Like it's almost guaranteed. So I'm going to Fugue, and yep. Play a Saga. But what else can I do? I had to play it with the Cleave to go after the Fierce Guardianship, or else I couldn't take it. I just knew that that's what they got, and obviously it was. But that meant that I couldn't follow up with like a Karn or something. Tevesh is at 9. I mean, there's not a lot I can do here. I have a small hope with Saga. Opponent tutors. Brutal. So we'll go ahead and make a construct. I'll make another. And I made a huge screw up here. Because well, I don't know if it's a huge screw up, but I'm taking a risk here. So I'm trying to. I need to clear this token. I want to kill their mana, even though just in case they get rid of Karn. But I need to push through and hit Tevesh, or I'm going to lose a game like right now, right? So I go for it, and it lands, which is great, and I can actually clock Tevesh for 5, which is huge. But my opponent Demonic Tutored last turn and didn't play anything. So what does that mean? More bullshit. It means the game's over. We don't really have. I mean, you don't even have to I don't care about your board. I don't care about your hand. I don't care about anything. I drew this card. Lovely. I don't care if you have interaction. You can't lightning bolt this thing when it comes into play. There's nothing you can do about it if you aren't playing counter spells. So this is where, keep in mind, this is where I'm thinking that a possible solution is we just have to play counter spells, and the best counter spells in our colors for that is Red Blast and Pyroblast, and it sucks. I hate playing those cards. I do not like playing cards that are targeted like that, unless I'm running say Painter Servant combo and I can make them good, or something along those lines. Like if I'm running Dak Faden and I can throw them away to Dak Faden, but I'm not doing any of that here. However, I don't really see much of an answer to Thassa's Oracle. You have to counterspell it. I mean, you've seen I've beaten it before by discard, but it's extremely dicey. And if it's a setup where they put it on top of their library, and I don't have you find some prisoners or whatever, there's kind of nothing I can do. So there's just no way to interact with that stupid combo. It's a 3-mana combo, instant speed, and it can't be interacted with outside of playing blue. So my options are to run Red Blast and Pyroblast, hope that increases the win percentage enough against Thassa's Oracle combo, or going to have to switch over to the same partners that Imadonkey is using with the understanding that you can't play this format without counter magic. I just, because of Breach and Oracle and Time Twister effects and stuff like that, it's possible that you cannot play this format without counter magic. Realistically speaking, it's just a possibility that you just shouldn't. Otherwise, if you notice, in all these games, barely that's statistically, is that significant? 6-point spread? Maybe, but not much. Not really. It's damn near 50-50. I go first again. So, wow. Going first and losing feels extra bad. All right, so I've got to take a mulligan there. Hand's too slow. This hand's too slow. It had fast mana, but it didn't have enough. Hand is basically too slow, but it has some disruption. Too slow. Mulligan, mulligan. Okay, let's keep 3 cards. This hand can get a Tevesh, and it can reload off a clamp. So we're going first because I can go Saga, and then I can Saga into a Lotus. So I can mulligan to 3 and still be okay. But unfortunately, LED in the graveyard means opponent's halfway there. Let's go ahead and clamp up. All right, there's something. And yeah. Okay, let's see what happens here. Tevesh? No. Okay. And Workshop. Okay, so they don't break my back right away. Chrome Mox okay? In response to Chrome Mox, my opponent Reign of Filth, Ad Nauseams, and another stupid 1-card combo. And I'm dead. Okay, moving on. Next game. This is it's so frustrating. There's just so many cards that are like that. I have 5 mana. I played Ad Nauseam. Okay, I'll scoop. I have 3 mana and I played Necro. Okay, I'll scoop. I have 2 mana and I played Breach. Okay, I'm dead. What are you going to do? I don't have counter spells. I can't deal with it. I feel like this really is the answer to this. you have to run counters. And then, you know, you have to have the mana to play the counter. You have to have the counter, but at least like there might be a chance. And it's very possible, in fact, that the format is so broken that you run a counter deck, red, black, blue. So you run Grixis, you run the Duresses and Thoughtseizes and stuff. You also run Pyroblast, and you run blue elemental blast. You run red and blue elemental blast, all 4 of them in the main, because if your opponent's playing white or green, who cares? Like they have no chance, right? Like against, what are they going to do against that combo deck? The only chance that they possibly have is to like play prison elements, and you can counter or tutor your way out of that most of the time. Outside of that, pretty much, and green, I mean, good lord, incredibly slow, incredibly bad. So barely has any, has a few prison elements. They've got like the Null Rod creature and a couple others, but again, super weak. The main threats that you're concerned about are the decks that kill you on turns 1, 2, and 3, which are all Grixis decks. And so it's possible that that is actually the correct thing to do, is just to embrace the insanity and go full hog. But we'll see. We'll see. So who is going first this time? It looks like I'm going second this time. Yeah, I'm going first. So, and this hand is pretty acceptable. Yeah, I've got a little bit of disruption. I've got some speed, and my opponent just mulliganed to 4 also, which is pretty huge. Probably why I win going second. I mean, that should be another thing that I could track on my spreadsheet, and we can start to see where the patterns emerge. Anyway, feed the swarm, under Chrome Mox yet again, basically where it's been almost the whole time. Opponent plays Everflowing Chalice. Of course, I'm going to just Expedition Map at the end of their turn, grab a Strip Mine, upkeep Vampiric. I'm going to draw a Hymn. My opponent only has 2 cards in hand, so before I can Strip Mine them, I'm going to Hymn. I can't kill this because I sacked for the mine, so that was probably a little bit premature. But it works out, obviously, so we'll go ahead and strip, kill this. And now I do need to draw enough mana to actually get in this game. My opponent drew an Arcane Signet. That's a little frustrating. Because I don't actually have enough mana to play my commander, and they are 1 mana off from playing theirs. I've disrupted them, and it still hasn't really worked out. Scary. All right, I get a Smokestack. If they don't get anything going right now, and they don't, I'm going to win. But man, this game was way closer than it probably should have been. Maybe I was too aggressive. This Strip Mine was probably too aggressive. It could have been, I could have waited, Vandal Blasted him the turn previous, and then instead of Strip Mine, I got Dust Bowl, and then just Dust Bowled him into Oblivion. Luckily, it worked out, but that was probably not played correctly. We're going to get down to the last 3 games now. Let's see how they play out. Then we'll do our tallies and get our percentages. And Imadonkey's playing first, so this is a 1-to-1 ratio. All right. Opponent runs out a first turn Mana Vault. I've got a pretty fast start here, potentially. I get to go Rog, Chrome, kill that, and take a card from hand. Beautiful. I get a Brainstorm. Lovely. This looks good, right? Like I should be okay. Oh, God, Soul Ring. Okay, well, I'm going to have to do... I don't like it, but I've got to kill that, because otherwise if they get their commander down, I'm toast. And unfortunately, in response, my opponent has Intuition. Another ridiculous card. Brain Freeze, Lotus Petal, LED. I mean, I don't know. I guess, like, keep the Brain Freeze, I guess. Let's get rid of the mana, and you know what's coming, right? Demonic Tutor. I've got 1 turn to live. Praetor's Grasp, and I don't have... I can make a guy, and then I can grasp, but here's the problem. My opponent, I know 100% what I have to do here. I have to counter the breach that's coming. And if I can't counter the breach, I have to Strip Mine the City of Brass. My opponent's not playing with Strip Mine, or they have it in hand. I haven't seen one, though, so they're not playing Strip Mine. And while I can go get the counterspell, this isn't my commander. So I can't play the free counter magic here. I can't play Fierce Guardianship to stop the breach. And once my opponent plays the breach, they get to use the pedal, and then they get to pedal, or sorry, the LED. The LED then gets the Demonic Tutor. And of course they have the, we know that they're holding the 3 mana card. So Intuition just puts those cards together and insta-kills you. if you don't. I mean, basically, you have 1 turn to live, and I didn't have the disruption necessary to live. If I could have produced 1 more freaking mana and played Karn, I would have shut off the combo also. So either of those would have been fine if I had my commander in play, or if I could have gotten Karn out, I would have been okay here. I would have been able to stall, but sadly, nope, and I died to stupid breach combo again. Frustrating, frustrating, frustrating. So frustrating. All right, so my opponent does not win the roll. This time I do, and or rather, my opponent does win the roll, but does not win this game. But they have to mulligan, and I have a great hand, and they don't. So, oh, well, they get to look at my awesome hand. All right, so I'm going to go Rog, City, and I use City this way because if my opponent Wheel of Fortunes or Twisters their way back into this game, I would rather have the City that produces 2 colors than the Swamp. I'm not worried about the 1 life at all. None of these games come to life total. So we'll go ahead and call Duress right away. Brainstorms in response. I was really thinking about calling the weak Duress, something along those lines, but the reason I didn't is because I have the Swat, right? So I kind of wanted to get the Swat. And this my opponent has a Thassa's. I can't take it. So I may be dead here. It's so frustrating. Like, oh, my opponent has this card and they have 2 lands. I might just be dead on turn 3. Yep, I am very close to dead. So this is exactly what my opponent's hand is, and I am super close to dead. A Braid is nice to slow them down a little, but I've got more important things to do. Obviously, go ahead and tap that City of Brass there and get my commander out. Because the Braid won't, if I'm dead, I'm dead. My Braid's not going to stop it. So, there might be a better artifact for me to kill later, or I can get around to it, whatever. So Frantic Thassa, what? So they're going to, yep, Frantic, drawing 2, discarding what? Workshop Burgi, and 2 Rakdos. So they have exactly 1 card in hand, and I'm terrified because I could just lose the game on the spot at any point. I'm going to draw a couple of cards here. Brutality won't, unfortunately, take Thassa. Let's go ahead and just get that Grim down, and I obviously need to kill some of their mana, or else they're going to get Tevesh down, and then I'm going to lose that way. So we'll go ahead and a Braid, and then while I'm at it, let's play a Dark Confidant. And I'm digging desperately for I need to find some discard, or I'm toast. If not, then I need to find enough mana destruction to make it impossible for them to kill me. Does my opponent kill me? No. Okay, good. Shattering Spree is very good there. Oh, Hymn to Torok, very, very good. Okay, let's see if we can. We've got Swat to pull this off. So with the discard there, we're mostly good. We're going to Hymn. And look at this. In response, Vault. So if I did not Hymn my opponent there, right? Like, let's say I just killed this and made some other plays. My opponent vaults, puts together Thassa's Oracle, and then just kills me next turn. It's just so maddening. And even though I am now not dead, there's a chance that I'm dead anyway, depending on what the top of my opponent's library is. All right. We'll attack for 2. Pass for the turn. And depending on what their card is here, they might... For example, they don't quite have a breach combo kill, so I might be okay. If they breach for 2 and then they can Rite of Flame, like I'm not exactly sure what they can do here. Maybe they could Yogg Will. I figured that the card they probably got was like Time Twister though, but it actually turns out he did get breach. I think this was a mistake. I think he realized it was a mistake. The Get Probe there, not super valuable, right? Yeah, they're just Rite of Flame, Get Probe again, Signet. It's just not enough, right? This is just a value breach. Value breach doesn't win games. Leaves a Thassa so that they can, Yogg Will later on, but it's just not going to work. And my opponent knows it and goes ahead and scoops. Because I'm going to Yogg Will again myself, kill the Arcane Signet, take the card out of my opponent's hand, and well, we'll figure it out from there. But my opponent no longer has easy access to the Thassa combo, so we get the win there. And we'll see who goes first in the final game of the night. And it is Ima goes first again. So we will do the math. I'm curious what the ratio. First of all, I'm curious like just raw count is in terms of win to loss. So I'm going to check that real quick. So these are dubs. So these are wins. What's going on there? Wins. And then this is going to be firsts. Right, and so we're just going to steal that formula, and instead of checking friends, we're going to check for eyes. And then his should be 17 if all is well, except we're going to count B to B. Something. Oh, C to C. I need to count B to B. Something wasn't adding up. So this should. Am I doing something? What am I doing wrong? Oh, I'm counting the same thing twice, like an idiot. Okay, let's for me, right? Everything should add up. Okay, everything adds up. So you can see there, it's a slightly different percentage. So this is mate. This is Ima. All right. There we go. So I got 17 W's, 19 firsts. So it was off slightly, but it's very close, right? It's very, very close. And we'll run through that last one here. Mulligan going first. Well, this is a sketchy hand to keep, but it's just so good if I can pull it off. And I'm going second, and that's actually meaningful here because it gives me the chance. My opponent does not throws away a Thassa's Oracle. I'm extremely happy to see that, and I get to go first turn commander with Swat backup, draw some cards, and we're off to the races. Opponent runs out a Relic and a Remora. Unfortunate. Don't love to see it, but mostly okay here. Lets the Remora go, and with that out of the way, I'm going to rack and ruin immediately. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 possibly is where my opponent would have been able to play their commander there, but now they can't. So they're 1 mana away from playing their commander again. I'm going to go ahead and try to draw some cards. My opponent, in response, flashes out a Notion Thief. Now, here's a frustrating problem. Keep in mind that Magic Online is broken, and I would love for them to fix it, but Tevesh Szat says you may sacrifice another creature or planeswalker. If you do draw 2, then draw another card if the sacrifice permanent was a commander. So if you don't, you should draw 0. And the problem is, online, when you choose not to sacrifice, you draw 1. It's stupidly broken. You can just cheat with it. In this case, it's going to punish me. My opponent has 1 card in hand, and so it's going to say, do you want to sacrifice a token? I'm going to be like, no, I don't want to do that. So I'm going to say no. Boom. And my opponent now has 2 cards. It actually forced a card into their hand, even though I didn't sacrifice anything. Super, super annoying. So now my opponent has 1 more card than they should have, so we're going to have to play a game that's not quite fair. So my opponent has an extra artifact mana, is what it comes down to. But what can I do about that? All right, they get Caverns down and they get their Tevesh, but they're behind on the Tevesh curve. We know what the last 2 cards in their hand is, and of course I've got Dreadbore in hand. All right, so let's draw some cards. Very nice. Let's kill that thing. Keep pushing out card advantage. Of course, my opponent has their alternate means of attack like getting back in the game, which is to attack Tevesh Szat. And here, I think we're going to bug out. So they do play Crom here and swing, and of course I lose some counters. And then on my turn, I play Chandra and then just kill the Crom, and then from there my opponent basically packs it in it, if I recall correctly. Yeah, so he does all that, gets the Crom down, hits the Tevesh. Does manage to fuel it, though, for some extra mana. We know the last card's Artifact Mana over there. Yeah, City of Traders being very nice right there. We'll go ahead and just draw some extra cards if I want it. City of Traders being nice, that is. Like, it gives me the ability to, you know, accelerate a little bit later. All right. Chandra, boom, and then we get to even shatter this, which means 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. There's still 2 mana away from either commander coming back down again, which is very nice. Go and swing in. It was at 23. I mean, life is a resource after all. Chain of Vapor targets my Tevesh, and I'm going to go ahead and deflect that to a Thrall token here, just for sheer tempo, and I'm hoping that they sack a land to bounce it back, because then they're even further away from getting one of their commanders down, which is what I'm mostly concerned about. They do. So that's cool. Cool by me. So Tevesh goes back to my hand. But now they're down a mana, which I'm very pleased with. And then on their turn, they go for a artifact that we knew was in hand. And of course, look at that, top deck Wasteland. Lovely. Let's kill that City of Brass. So it's so funny. You'd think I'd kill the Ancient Tomb there, but look, this has got no luck counter. So this is colorless, colorless, and I'm about to kill this, and it's going to be colorless all the way down. So boom, boom. We'll get Tevesh down first, and then bang. And so I did let him have that, but now they have no colored mana at all and no cards in hand. So even if they draw, like, you know, whatever they draw, they can't, like, Wheel of Fortune their way back in the game. And then from there, I'm going to play Crucible and then strip mine. And I will take out the Ancient Tomb soon. Okay, can't force a will here. They don't have a commander in play. And I was thinking I would do the Crucible Wasteland thing, but I drew Dust Bowl, so let's just do the Dust Bowl thing. And with that, my opponent gives up. Cool. And that's it. So total of 32 first. So I went first 19 times and I won 17 of them. So I was able to win twice, even though I went second. My opponent went first 13 times and won. Excuse me. I went 19 times first and I lost 2 of them. Going first, I still lost. So my opponent was able to win twice, even though he went second. So that tells you that the opponent's deck, I think, is a little bit better in the sense that he was able to win from you know, going second. But it's very closely, like, they're very closely matched, and it gives you an idea of how messed up the format is, how deterministic the die roll is in this format. So hopefully this was interesting and entertaining for you. I could do, like, the percentages on terms of, like, win-loss and stuff. How many of these were just Thassa Oracle bullshit? How much of this was Underworld Breach bullshit? How much of it was, like, my own bullshit, like with the Lotuses and the rituals and stuff? But I think if you watched it, you got a pretty good sense of what the format's like. The format is ultimately, I'll be honest, it's not fun. I don't know. To me, this isn't fun, but it's necessary. And the next step is going to be twofold. One, we'll add the Red Blast to this deck potentially. See how many times I lose against other decks and whether or not it works out. Is it worth it? Does it do enough? And then the other thing I want to do is, like I said, I want to switch over to the commander combo that my opponent's using and find out if giving up the tools that Rogue enables is okay, because we pick up so many valuable cards from blue, and whether or not that actually increases the win rate or decreases it. Because again, it puts more pressure on the mana base and we lose some speed and stuff, but we get some really, really good disruption and some better tutors and deck manipulation, which is sometimes also pretty nice. And I'm curious to see what happens. But for now, that's all I've got. Hopefully you enjoyed yourself. I do want to say thank you very much for watching, and I look forward to your comments. See you next time.